Chapter 1. Myrtle looked around nervously as she disembarked the steamboat in Skagway, Alaska. She knew Aaron Fielding was waiting for her somewhere, but she had a surprise for him that she wasn't certain he'd be happy about. She and Aaron had corresponded for a bit, and she'd agreed to be his mail-order bride with the help of Elizabeth Tandy, a marriage broker in Beckham, Massachusetts, where she'd lived for several years while working at the hotel in town. "Is he here?" Josephine, whom they all called Josie, asked. "I don't know," Myrtle said. "How do I know which man he is?" "Good question," Lula said. "Are you sure he's not going to be upset that you brought us along?" "I have no idea at all." It seemed like a brilliant idea at the time. Myrtle bit her bottom lip, worried that Aaron would be upset with her before they even married. But before he could be upset, she had to find him. Slowly, a tall man with dark hair and a closely shaven beard walked toward the four girls who were huddled together. "Is one of you Myrtle Banks?" "I am," Myrtle said. Now that she was face to face with Aaron, she knew she'd made a mistake. She shouldn't have brought her friends without his permission. What was she thinking? He smiled. "I'm Aaron Fielding." "It's so good to finally meet you," Myrtle said. "I want to introduce my friends. Josie, Ella, and Lula. They are all planning to marry men from Yeti, so they came along with me. That way, only one of you needs to miss work." "Wasn't that smart?" Aaron frowned. "I only brought food for two." "Each of us brought extra food in our carpet bags," Myrtle said. Sally wrote how her husband only brought jerky and hardtack on the journey, so we each packed some, and she also said we could restock once we reached Lake Bennett. She said it would be costly, so we have as much money as we could save up for the food. "Sounds like you thought of everything then, doesn't it?" Aaron was annoyed, but he tried not to show it. How was he supposed to watch over four women on the long journey from Skagway to Yeti? Why hadn't Myrtle at least consulted him about the change in plans? "We're strong, and we will make the load lighter," Josie said softly. "I know we're a surprise to you, but we can pick berries to supplement our food supply." Aaron forced a smile. "Let's go have a wedding then." He walked toward the pasture, letting the four women trail behind him. He couldn't help but wonder which of the men he worked with each woman would marry. At that moment, he didn't want to marry any of them, but he knew it would be better to go along with the women's plan. It wasn't like he could leave them there. After a quick ceremony, he kissed Myrtle on the cheek. "Let's head out. We have a long way to go before winter." The women all nodded, smiling cheerfully. He knew their good spirits couldn't last the entire trip, and he dreaded having to take them all with him. "I have a mule to carry bags, but she won't be able to carry them all. We're going to need to keep our eyes open for another. I don't care if we get a Jack or a Molly, but you ladies will not be able to carry your packs up the steep trail." "What's your mule's name?" Myrtle asked, hoping to break the ice with the man who seemed very annoyed with her, though it was obvious he was trying not to let it show. When Aaron stopped walking, all four of the women stopped as well. He talked to a man who had two leads in his hand. "Are you selling your mules?" he asked. The man nodded, naming a price. Aaron winced, but he dug the money from his pocket. "Thanks. I could sell one of the women for you too. If you don't need all four, that is." The man spit into the dirt. Myrtle flinched as if she'd been struck. "We're not for sale." Aaron nodded emphatically. "All of these women are spoken for and under my protection." As annoyed as he was with the situation, he couldn't imagine leaving a woman with the man in front of him. "Thank you for the mule," Aaron said as he led the women away. He would protect all four of the ladies with his life. The burden may not be his choice, but he knew his duty, and his co-workers would surely pay him back for any extra expenses when they saw he'd brought their brides. Once they were out of earshot of the man, he turned to the four women. "Stay close to me. There will be others like him, wanting to buy one of you. We need to be careful when we're in busy areas, but thankfully, that will only happen twice on our journey." Myrtle nodded, not having realized exactly how wild this area would be. The men frightened her a bit, and she was glad her friends were beside her. "We'll be careful." "Good. Follow me." He set off again, and they followed as if he was a mother duck, and they were all ducklings. As soon as the image sprang to her mind, Myrtle couldn't help but giggle. The other ladies all looked at her, and she whispered her thought, not wanting Aaron to hear her. She had no idea if he would share her silly sense of humor. He's the mama duck, and we're the ducklings, waddling along behind him. The others all laughed softly, all except Josie, who was closer to Myrtle than any of the others. Josie laughed loudly. "Myrtle, you need to keep those comments to yourself until we're out of this town." Calling Skagway a town was a bit of a stretch of the imagination. Yes, it was an area with people, and it bustled, but from what Myrtle had seen, the buildings seemed to be saloons and brothels. Could an area with only saloons and brothels be called a town? She didn't know. Aaron glared at all of them over his shoulder. "Do not call attention to yourselves." Myrtle hung her head in a show of false humility. She would obey the man, as he was her husband, but she would only do so in public. When they were alone, she would let him know what she thought of his orders. Soon, they were out of Skagway and on their way on a dirt trail away from civilization. Myrtle wondered for a moment if she would ever be able to return to Massachusetts for a visit, but the thought made her sad, and she blocked it out of her mind. She had to look to the future that the man in front of her represented. There was no real choice. By the time they stopped that evening, Myrtle felt as if her feet would never be able to move so swiftly again. Aaron showed them no mercy as he set the pace that they all must follow. He made a small campfire and looked around at the women. "I only brought 2 blankets." "We all brought our own," Ella said. She'd been mostly quiet through the day. Myrtle had never heard her say much, but when Myrtle had needed help with anything, Ella had been there to support her. She was that way with all the waitresses and maids who lived at the hotel. "Good," Aaron said as he quickly tied the mules to a tree and removed their burdens from them. "There's a river a short distance that way. Make sure at least 2 of you go together if you're going to leave camp." He held up the pack of food he'd brought. "This is my food supply. One of you will need to distribute a small amount of jerky and hardtack to everyone in the mornings and again in the evenings. If we make good time every day, we'll stop for lunch." None of the women argued with him, knowing he controlled their fates, at least until they all reached Yeti. "Can we get water from the river?" Myrtle asked. Aaron nodded. "But we need to boil it before we drink it. Cholera isn't pretty, and it's the only known way to prevent it." Aaron finally sat down beside the fire, where all 4 women were rubbing their feet. "Today was difficult, but there won't be any easy days on this journey." All 4 women nodded. Josie was the only one to respond. "We've all read letters from our friends who went before us. The journey sounds like torture, but Yeti seems like a land with streets made of gold and food lying on the ground, just waiting for us to pick it up." He laughed at that. "Yeti is a frontier town, much like all the others. You'll be expected to work hard for every meal. I understand the women who have already arrived have found a way to divide the chores among them, so no one is doing everything, but you will not be ladies with maids. We're used to being the maids. It will be nice to do work we can benefit from," Myrtle said. "Why were all of you laughing while we were still in town?" he asked. Myrtle bit her lip for a moment and then admitted, "It was my fault. I have a rather vivid imagination, and I mentioned something I was imagining, and everyone laughed. I will do better." Aaron narrowed his eyes. "What did you say?" Myrtle thought for a moment about not answering, but that wouldn't have been right. "I said that you were like a mother duck, and we were all your ducklings waddling behind you." For a moment, Aaron looked offended, but then he laughed, a low grumble that started in his belly and soon immersed them all. "Is that the sort of thing I can expect for the rest of my life?" he asked as his laughter, and the women's, finally subsided. Myrtle nodded emphatically. "And so much worse, I'm afraid. Not only do I have an extremely vivid imagination, but I seem to be missing something most people have between their minds and their tongues. I blurt out whatever I think. It's not a favorable trait. At least I will always know where I stand," he said. He stood up and held his hand out to Myrtle. "We're going for a short walk. We need to get to know one another better." He found he was suddenly less angry with her for bringing along her friends. He wanted them to get along, but he knew he needed to let her know what she'd done was unacceptable. Myrtle took his hand and rose to her feet, casting a quick look over her shoulder where Josie was making a face at her. Oh dear. Bringing her friends had been a terrible idea. As soon as they were out of earshot of camp, Erin stopped walking and turned to her. I wish you'd told me you were thinking of bringing your friends. I thought this would be a time for us to get to know one another and grow close. Instead, I'm escorting 4 women on a steep, difficult trail. Myrtle looked down at her hands, which were fidgeting with her apron. When it was time to leave, I was very nervous about meeting you. I told Josie, and the idea grew from there. I know I should have talked to you about it, but it didn't occur to me you might not be happy about it until we got off the ship. It seemed like such a brilliant idea back in Massachusetts. He sighed. I guess I can understand that, but in the future, I'd like you to talk to me before you make decisions like that. She looked up at him and nodded. I truly am sorry. I forgive you. We'll both do better at communicating in the future. It was hard only being able to write to you. She smiled up at him. It feels odd to be standing in front of you, to be honest. It feels strange to me as well. He put his hands at her waist and drew her to him. I didn't feel comfortable kissing you for the first time in front of your friends. Would you mind if I kiss you now? She shook her head. Of course not. You're my husband. I like the sound of that. He softly kissed her lips, not trying for anything truly intimate with her friends so close. As soon as their lips touched, he knew he'd made the right decision to marry her. He wasn't happy about waiting for his wedding night for a month or more, but he'd make it work. When he lifted his head, he cupped her cheek for just a moment. You're sure all of your friends are marrying men from Yeti? She nodded. Yes, I am. I don't remember who they're marrying at the moment. Mostly when we talk about who we are planning to marry, we call him my future husband. Names would be good, but we got into a bad habit of never using them. I can understand that. I have several friends I work with, and we only referred to who we were writing as my bride. There are going to be some very shocked men when I show up with 4 brides. She laughed softly. You're right about that. I'm so sorry I didn't write you about it. All is forgiven. It's what we do from here that matters. Tell me about your home. I have a small cabin. I have a stove on order, and I have a feeling it will be put together before we arrive home. All I use now is a fireplace. I rarely cook for myself. I buy what the women in town bake when I can. He shook his head. It's what we all do. We were all happy just eating jerky and hardtack until you women started coming to town and making us hungry for sweets. She smiled. Do you have any animals? No. Have you always lived in Alaska? Myrtle knew he'd written about these things, but she wanted to hear his voice give her the answers. No. I grew up in Wisconsin. Actually, the cabin I grew up in is about the same size I'm in now. My father was a lumberman in Wisconsin. My mother died when I was small. I have a brother who is 3 years younger than me. Ma died in childbirth with him. Were you raised going to church? She'd always enjoyed church, and she hoped he would want to go as often as she did. I was. There's no real church in Yeti. A group of us get together for a Bible study on Sunday mornings. Mr. Johnson, who runs the store with his wife, leads the Bible study. He went to seminary school but decided to open a store instead. I've heard really good things about Mrs. Johnson. All of her friends had written letters about the woman who tended the store. You've heard good things because there's nothing bad that you can say about her. She's a kind woman who goes out of her way to help others. He draped an arm over her shoulders as he guided her back to camp. Do you plan to join your friends in their business ventures? Myrtle shrugged. I'm not sure yet. I would love it if I could bake. My favorite thing to bake is pies, but I'm not sure what ingredients would be available. I could knit or sew. I've never had a green thumb. I'm probably not thinking of everything, but the women already settled probably know what they want me to do. Oh, I'm sure they do. It doesn't seem to take any of the ladies long before they start working with the others. It's almost like everyone arranged this before they even boarded the train to come here. It's Belle, Myrtle said. There's no doubt in my mind she's the mastermind behind everything. You're probably right. She's the one who married our boss. Well, I hope to join the business endeavors if someone has a task for me. He nodded. I don't mind either way. Though I would never say no to more money coming in. Myrtle smiled. Then I will definitely join them. They just need to find me a task. Chapter 2. That evening set a pattern for their trip to Lake Bennett. They would eat around a campfire with the others, and after supper, Myrtle and Aaron would go for a walk, talking and simply getting to know one another. We should reach Lake Bennett tomorrow, Aaron told the women. Even with the extra food you brought, we only have enough to make it there, and we'll have to buy more at Lake Bennett. Josie nodded. We all planned for that. We'll buy the food. Myrtle agreed. We don't want you to have to pay more because we decided to all travel together. She thought longingly of food that wasn't hardtack or jerky, but she would eat it with a smile. She felt like she had a lot to make up for. Aaron nodded. That would be good. When we get there, you four need to stay close to me. I don't want any trouble. Lake Bennett is crowded with miners right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if I get more offers to buy some of you. Lula frowned. We'll all be quiet and try not to draw attention to ourselves. That would be best, Aaron said. I have a friend there who kept my boat, and he should be able to trade me for one bigger. I only planned for 2 people, and the boat I have will not fit all of us. Ella nodded. We understand. And we're all willing to help with the journey in any way we can. Good. We won't be able to make it otherwise. The 4 friends exchanged looks. We'd also be willing to cook along the way if it would help, Myrtle said. Aaron shook his head. It won't. We need to be able to move quickly, and there won't be time for fishing or hunting. There will be more hardtack in our future. It was all Myrtle could do not to groan. Whatever you feel is best, she said, trying to keep her voice light and happy. Since we won't be walking during the day, perhaps we could do some berry hunting in the evenings without slowing down much, Lula suggested. That's not a bad idea. And I'm sure we'd all love something different to eat, Aaron said. There tend to be a lot of berries along the Yukon River. Myrtle was thrilled to hear their days of only eating jerky and hardtack were going to end soon. She wasn't certain she could bear even another day of it. Hopefully, Rusty will have something we can bring with us. I know how hard it is not to have any variety in our diets. Rusty is your friend? Myrtle asked. Aaron nodded. He is. He lives at Lake Bennett all the time, and helps where he can. He makes a decent profit that way as well. He'll buy a boat from one man and sell it to another for more. He's a smart businessman. He stood and held down a hand to help Myrtle up. Myrtle didn't want to take another step that day, but she got to her feet with a smile. If we see berries, I'll give a shout, she told the other women. They all nodded tiredly. Walking so many miles up and down a mountain wasn't easy for any of them. I think we're all ready to have a break from so much walking, Myrtle said to Aaron as they left camp. He nodded. Including me. The worst part of this journey is almost over. I'm thankful for that. Have you given more thought to what you want to do once we reach Yeti? She shrugged. I'd like to bake pies. But if I need to do something different, then I'll do it. I want us to do well financially, and it sounds like I'll have a stove to pay for. He smiled. Not really, I've already purchased it. But if you're going to bake, you may want 2 stoves, and then you would need to purchase a second one. I just might. Myrtle had started to look forward to her walks with Aaron in the evenings. They were difficult after walking all day, but she was learning a great deal about her new husband. The others were already bedded down for the night when they returned to camp. It was their last night on this leg of the journey, and they were all exhausted and tired of walking the steep trail. Aaron quickly kissed Myrtle goodnight, and she went to her bedroll with the other women while he slept close to the fire. It had been easier to do things that way, and though they often kissed, they hadn't found a way to become truly intimate. It would happen. Thankfully, Rusty, Aaron's friend, had a large boat they could buy at Lake Bennett. It cost more than Aaron would have liked, but he would make it work. True to their word, the ladies purchased food for the second half of their trip, but he could see by their expressions that the price had shocked them all. It took them a few hours at Lake Bennett, but they were soon on their way. "We'll take the boat downstream until we reach the spot nearest Yeti. The Yukon River doesn't go through town, so we'll walk from there. The Tozitsna River does go through Yeti, but I found it's easier to walk from there." "Is that where salmon is caught near Yeti?" Myrtle asked. "Sally wrote to us about fishing somewhere near Yeti." "Yes, the Tozitna runs adjacent to my property. You'd be able to fish there if you wanted to. There's plenty of salmon and whitefish. I actually prefer whitefish, but I would never turn down smoked salmon." "Good to know," Myrtle said. "I love to fish," Josie said. "Are the whitefish trapped like salmon, or caught with a fishing pole?" "They're trapped either with a fish trap or with a net." "Are you thinking that will be your way to contribute to what the others are doing?" Aaron asked. Josie shrugged. "I might. I'm not sure yet. There are so many options that I want to hear them all before I commit to something." Josie was always one to keep her options open. "I wish we had a list of what was most needed," Ella said. "I like the idea of hunting, but is there enough game to hunt year-round?" Aaron laughed softly. "There's always game in Alaska. In the summer, especially during molting, you can hunt for ducks. Mallard is my favorite because they taste the most like chicken. Then in the fall, there's moose. You can get bear anytime except winter, but they're best in the fall. Unless you're hunting for their hides, and then it's best to hunt in spring, when their hides are pristine." "I like the idea of shooting a bear," Ella said. "You seem to know a lot about hunting in Alaska." Aaron nodded. "I have a buddy who came up here as a trapper. He's taught me a lot." "What's his name?" Lula asked. "Alex. I guess when I talk about men I work with, I should use their names." Lula nodded. "Alex is the man I'm supposed to marry. Do the men know you ladies are coming?" For the first time, Aaron considered what a surprise it would be for the men if they weren't forewarned. He was certainly happy he'd had warning, so he knew to clean up his cabin. "They should," Ella said with a frown. "We all sent them letters right before leaving." "Good. You don't need to be surprising them all." Myrtle frowned, looking down at her hands. When Aaron made comments like that, she felt awful for having surprised him with her friends. Aaron was mostly silent as they made their journey, letting the women talk about whatever they would. At times, he was surprised by the topics they covered. They spoke of everything from politics to the latest fashions from Paris. He had no idea women could carry on an intelligent discussion about politics, but he could see the ladies were as well versed as any man he'd spoken to. Finally, after another 2 weeks of travel, where they stopped every night to make camp, they arrived at the turnoff to Yeti. It was late in the day, so they made camp one last time. Aaron had never felt so ready to be home as he was in that moment. If it had just been him, he'd most certainly have pushed on to sleep in his own bed that night. They were up with the birds the following morning, the ladies getting more talkative the closer they were to Yeti. They talked about what their husbands would be like, and it was all Aaron could do not to laugh at their words. Josie seemed to understand that her future husband would be gruff and outdoorsy. Ella seemed to think she was marrying some sort of fairy tale prince. And Lula seemed to be fretting more than the others, worried that the man she married would be unkind. He wasn't sure how he was supposed to distribute the women to their future mates, but he was determined it would happen that day. Perhaps he would simply take them to work with him. That would probably work best. They were all meant to marry men who worked for the lumber operation. During their last day on the trail, Myrtle walked beside Aaron. She would be his partner now, and her friends wouldn't be as big a part of her life as they had been. Of course, they would probably all go into business with the others if there was a job that appealed. Myrtle knew that her bringing her friends along unexpectedly had cost Aaron more than he was expecting, so she was determined to make some kind of income to make up for it. Her first view of the town was a bit of a shock. There were 3 or 4 houses and a store. Nothing else. She had to wonder how people survived with so little. She'd been raised on a farm, but it was only a 15-minute walk into town. This town, well, it left a lot to be desired. No wonder the women who had gone before them were working so hard. So many things were needed in Yeti. Aaron first went to his cabin and opened the door for her. "This is where we'll live. I'm going to take your friends to the lumber mill to meet up with their future husbands. Mr. Johnson will marry them, I'm certain. Do you want to be there for the weddings? Or do you want to get settled in?" "I'm going to settle in, I think. They'll all be there for each other. Do you mind if I show myself around and see what is available to me?" She really wanted to bake. That was her dream. She knew some of the others baked as well, but maybe she could take some of their burden from them. "Would you let Everett know that another woman from Beckham is here, and I have a surprise for Belle? Ask her to meet me at 10 at the store in the morning? I want to surprise her." Aaron nodded. "I will do it." After Aaron left with the others, she poked around the cabin. The new stove was there, making her wonder who had set it up. There were a few pots and pans, but she would need more to get started if she was going to make it as a baker. She went down the trapdoor into the shallow cellar and was a bit surprised there was nothing there. Had Aaron done nothing to prepare for winter? It was already mid-September. Perhaps he meant to eat jerky and hardtack all winter, and while that might be fine for him, she was already sick of both. She hoped she could get some things ready. As she explored, she made mental notes of things she wanted to do for the cabin. Curtains were a must, although they would block the beautiful view of the mountains in the distance. She could hear the trickle of water, so she followed its sound down to the river Aaron had mentioned. It looked both deep and wide. She could easily catch fish there if she chose to. When she went back inside, she made a list of things she'd need if she was going to start a bakery. She knew the other women sold their wares at the store in town, but she wouldn't mind having an actual bakery, where someone could come in and have a piece of pie. She'd have to think about that. Perhaps one of the other ladies would want to serve meals to the men while she started the bakery. All things they needed to think about. The more time she spent thinking about it, and writing her list, the more excited she became. She was starting a new life, and she would no longer be working for someone else. She'd be working for herself. Every hour she put in would be for her future and not to line the pockets of already rich men. She was going to love being her own boss. She could feel it deep in her bones. Chapter 3. After yet another meal of hardtack and jerky the following morning, Myrtle was off to the store in town. She'd spent some time cleaning and planned to do their laundry later in the day. Aaron was already off to work. When she entered the store, she found not only Belle, but Maggie, Sally, and Agnes waiting there, Belle and Maggie with their babies in tow. Myrtle embraced her friends. "It's so good to see all of you." Agnes had the biggest smile of them all. "I heard something about a surprise?" Myrtle had told the friends she'd journeyed with to meet her at the store a little after 10. "You'll see," she said mysteriously. "I have some shopping I need to do. There is absolutely no food in our cabin." "Oh, I'm sure there's hardtack and beef jerky," Maggie said, sighing. "I don't know how those men can eat so much of it. The thought of it makes me gag now." "Guess what I had for breakfast," Myrtle said, shaking her head. She looked around the store and found some sugar, flour, and other essentials she'd need for her everyday cooking. She'd wait until she was somewhere more private with the others before she brought up the idea of a bakery. She set her purchases on the counter, and the woman there smiled. "I'm going to put this on credit for you. If you join the others in bringing goodies for me to sell, I'll just start deducting what you make from your total," the woman said. "I'm Katie Johnson, by the way. You must call me Katie as the others do." "All right, Katie," Myrtle said. "I'm Myrtle Banks, I mean Fielding." It was the first time Myrtle had said her new name aloud, and it felt strange to her. She returned to the other women from Beckham just in time for Lula, Josie, and Ella to arrive. Agnes squealed when she saw them all, and hurried to hug them. Belle smiled at Myrtle. "This is your surprise?" Myrtle nodded. they all traveled with me. I think it's time for one of our business meetings. We'll go to Maggie's. She has the littlest baby, and I'm sure Trudy will need a nap, Belle said before going to greet the newcomers. After the other women did a bit of shopping, they all headed toward Maggie's cabin. Once there, they settled in, two of them sitting on the bed. I'm sorry I don't have more chairs. Lula shook her head. Don't worry about Ella and me. We're just happy to be sitting after the walk from the river. Maggie smiled. I remember that walk, and I agree completely. As usual, Belle took the lead. So I'm sure all of you know that we've been working together to provide for our families, but also to provide much-needed services for the community. I hunt. Maggie forages. Sally gardens and raises pigs. Agnes fishes and raises goats. The others nodded. Where do you need us? Myrtle asked. There are so many things that need to be done to prepare for winter, Maggie said. We have been working all summer to prepare. There's so much that can't be done in winter or even in late fall here. Fall seems to only last a week or two, and then we're plunged into winter. It will start freezing any time, and then many of the things we do will become harder. What do we still need for winter? Josie asked. We'll do whatever it takes. Belle smiled. Do any of you have experience hunting? Either with a rifle or bow and arrow? I've hunted, Lula said. I've used both a rifle and a bow. Then you'll be joining me at least for the next few weeks, Belle said. I'd like to bring in a few more moose and even a bear if we can manage it. Lula nodded. I'll help in any way I can. All my crops are in for the year, but I've been doing some foraging. There's still good forage for a little longer, and Maggie needs to rest a little while longer now that the baby is here. I'll help with that, Josie said. Most of the salmon are gone for the year, Agnes said. But this is the peak season for whitefish. I'm working on fishing as many as I can, drying some and smoking others. Then we'll have more food options for the winter. I'll help with that, Ella said. My father was a fisherman, and I'm well acquainted with different techniques. Belle looked at Myrtle. That just leaves you. Who do you want to join? Myrtle bit her lip. I'd really like to bake. Maybe I could even have a bakery. That would work, Belle said. The way we work money is we all share everyone's profits, and we all share the food we make. Agnes and I both have cold houses. The ice isn't very deep into the ground, and it's always there, even in summer. The men dug out pits in the ground and then built stone walls around them. The meat stays good year-round this way. That's really smart. Myrtle said, nodding. So, if I bake, I share a loaf of bread with everyone and sell the rest at the store? Exactly, Belle said. Unless someone wants to do their own baking, which is fine. The men in the area are always looking for sweet treats. You could bake pies, cakes, bread, and anything else you can think of. It's always sold the day we take it to Mrs. Johnson, and she splits the profits between us. Myrtle nodded. What about the cost of supplies? She takes all that into account. It's been really nice to partner with her on these things, Agnes said. Then I'm going to bake, Myrtle said. Everyone needs to let me know if they want a share of what I bake. For now, we all will, Belle said. We're all pushing hard to be finished before winter. For your own meals, we'll all choose the meat we want from the stores we have. There's plenty of smoked salmon, and even some just frozen. We have moose, duck, and venison. Maggie and Sally usually choose what they want the day they plan to cook, and everything stays cold until then. Agnes nodded. And don't worry about taking the meat, even if you didn't help provide it. Everyone shared with me when I arrived, and we'll share with the next to come if more do. I think we're too late in the year for more, but we'll share all we have even as we get more for the winter. Myrtle smiled. Thank you for that. I was surprised that Aaron had no food at all. Josie nodded. Neither did Malcolm. Belle frowned for a moment. I'm only going to need a couple of loaf pans if you're taking on the baking, Myrtle. I'm going to give you the others I have. It will help you get a good start. Oh, thank you. Myrtle said. That will help me a lot. I have some extras as well, Maggie said. Will you just bake bread, or do you plan to bake sweets as well? I plan to bake everything I can. I've already talked to Aaron about getting a second oven. Myrtle sighed. Oh, how I wish I could have a dedicated bakery, but that's not going to work for a while. Belle shrugged. I'm sure the men would build it for you, but it would make more sense to wait until spring. Then I'll revisit the idea in the spring, Myrtle said. I like the idea of having tables for people to eat. Maybe a soup every day. Maggie looked at Myrtle, shaking her head. You'd need a partner for that. Someone to serve tables and make soups. I think it's possible, but you'd only want to be open at breakfast, lunch, and supper times. And it would be a lot of work. More work than waiting tables at the hotel? Myrtle asked. Maybe, wait for someone who has the same vision you do, Belle said. I think you'd be biting off more than you can chew. I'll wait then. If someone is willing to go in with me, that will happen down the road. For now, I'll bake bread and sweets and see how they do at the store in town. They moved on to other topics, but Myrtle couldn't shake the idea of wanting to sell her bread and desserts to people directly and not through the store. Though, it made a great deal more sense to follow the pattern the others had set. Soon, she'd be able to decide if it worked for her or if she wanted to do things differently. Myrtle left their meeting with a stack of loaf pans from Maggie, with a promise from Belle to bring more. Each of the ladies wanted her to bake them a loaf of bread per day, at least until the foraging, fishing, and hunting were done for the year. As she walked home, she made a mental list of things she needed to accomplish that day. First, she needed to get the laundry taken care of. After the long trek from Skagway, her clothes could almost stand up on their own, and she knew Aaron's weren't much better. She carried in water and put it on the stove to heat as she stripped the bed and gathered everything that needed to be washed. Myrtle was in the process of hanging the clothes out to dry when Belle called out to her. I brought pans and some venison and vegetables for your supper. I know you bought other necessities at the store. Oh, thank you. I hadn't taken the time to think about what I'd fix for supper tonight. I figured as much. I'm making sure to take some meat and vegetables to all the ladies who just arrived. Myrtle looked at Belle for a moment. Is there truly enough food for all of us? I don't want to take what you've worked so hard to store. We'll be fine, Belle said. 2 of us will be hunting, and I won't be baking bread. Maggie will watch the baby for me since she needs to rest for a little longer. We'll get a lot done. I'm willing to help in any way I can. Myrtle worried she would be a burden on the others, but she didn't know how to contribute more than she already would be. Just bake me a loaf of bread every day and maybe a dessert every day or 2, and I'll be thrilled. I know the others feel the same. What if I were to cook a huge pot of stew every day for all the couples? Would that help? Belle frowned, thinking about it. It would help, but it's a lot to take on. Are you sure you want to do that? Myrtle nodded emphatically. It would mean you'd have more hours to hunt. And those foraging would have more time. You need to spend all your daylight hours being productive, and I can help you do that. Belle smiled. Thank you. I like that idea. I'll ask the others. Maggie may prefer to make her own meals because she'll be home anyway, but with 2 babies, she may jump at the opportunity. It's a way I can help a little more. How many loaves of bread should I bake for the store every day? Myrtle was happy to have some one-on-one time with Belle to ask her questions. It was easier than in a group setting. I baked 5 every day, and so did Maggie. There was never enough. I think you could bake 15 or more loaves just for the store, and there would still be men who don't get any. All right. I'll start with 15, and if Katie feels like she could sell more, I'll add to what I'm doing. Myrtle rubbed her shoulder. I'm already feeling sore from all the kneading I'll be doing. Belle laughed. You'll get used to it. Just like you got used to being on your feet all day at the hotel. Myrtle smiled. I'm sure I will. And honestly? I can't wait to get started. This is a dream come true for me. How did it work out for Aaron to agree to bring you all back with him? We hadn't heard a word about it. Belle said. Well, we all decided at the last minute it would be easier if only one of our future husbands had to travel to bring us back. I didn't have time to write to Aaron. Let's just say it was a surprise, but for him, not a good one. I see. Belle made a face. Make sure the two of you work that out. We will. He told me he forgave me, and I'm trying to take his feelings into account better. It never occurred to me it would be a hardship for him. We brought extra food. Belle clapped Myrtle on the shoulder. I understand completely. But men seem to prefer to be the ones to make all the final decisions. Having that taken from him was probably very frustrating. Myrtle nodded. We needed an extra meal as well. I never considered that. Now I plan to work extra hard to pay him back for the extra expense I caused. Belle smiled. I'm sure it will all be fine in the end. Just talk about it and make sure he isn't still harboring any resentment about it before you move on. You don't want your marriage to be over before it starts. Long after Belle left, Myrtle was still thinking over her friend's words. Was Belle right? Did Aaron secretly resent her for taking the decision away from him? She baked a cake for supper, hoping to sweeten Aaron's attitude because she planned to talk to him that night. She knew he was thinking about the two of them consummating their marriage, and she felt it would be best if all their troubles were talked out before that happened. As she worked, she prayed that things would work out between them. She wanted nothing more than to be a good wife and please her husband. She had the kitchen cleaned and most of the dishes washed before Aaron returned home from work. He looked exhausted. Supper's ready, Myrtle said. Do you want water or coffee to drink? If coffee's made, I'll have that. If not, water is fine. Aaron took a deep sniff. What are you making? Something smells delicious. Belle brought venison roast and potatoes for our supper. We all spent a long time talking about where each of the new ladies will fit into the organization Belle has going. I think we're going to fit in just fine. She set his plate on the table in front of him, full of meat, potatoes, carrots, and fresh bread. Don't fill yourself too full. I baked a cake as well. He sighed contentedly. This was why he'd sent for a wife. He would eat like a king. Chapter 4. After finishing the supper dishes, Myrtle decided to take Belle's advice to make sure there was no resentment for the way she'd handled things and brought her friends along with her. She sat down across from Aaron with a cup of tea in front of her. She stared at the tea, mixing it with a spoon though it didn't need it. Are you still upset with me over bringing my friends without warning you? He looked at her for a moment. I forgave you for that. Are you certain? She asked. I think it's time we made our marriage a real one, and I don't want to do that with you harboring resentment. He covered her hand with his. Don't worry about that. He leaned back in his chair. What did you decide about working with the other ladies? He asked. I'm going to bake, she said. Belle and Maggie have given me all of their extra loaf pans, and I'm even going to bake a loaf of bread per day for the other ladies. Sounds like exactly what you wanted to do. I think that's great. I'm pleased with the decision. She bit her lip. Would you have a problem with me buying another stove? I know they're dreadfully expensive, but if I had to, I could get a lot more done. And I was told Katie would let me get it on credit, and then pay it back with my portion of the profits. He sighed. I can't afford another stove. I already spent too much when I purchased that second mule on the trip here. You would have to earn the money to pay Mrs. Johnson back. Are you certain you can do that? Myrtle took a deep breath before nodding. I can do that. She felt a little uncertain, knowing she would need to make every dime to pay for the stove, and it would be expensive. Then I don't mind if you add another stove. I eventually want to have a bakery. A separate building where I can bake bread and treats and even soup and serve it to customers who sit at the tables there. It's a dream, and I know it will take a long time, but it's what I'm thinking about for the future. It really will take a while, and I think you should see how you do first. Myrtle nodded. She'd hoped he'd tell her to just do it, but she could see he was too cautious for that. I agree, she said finally. Does you being the baker mean I get extra treats? She laughed. You'll definitely be my taste tester. I like the sound of that, Erin said. I thought you might. Do you have a favorite dessert I can make for you? And everyone else in town, of course. Erin thought for a moment. I have two favorites that are tied in my mind. The first is berry cobbler. Blueberry, cranberry, whatever berry. I love it. The second is an Eskimo fry bread with jam. Have you ever had fry bread? Myrtle shook her head. I haven't. She thought about asking around for a receipt for the fry bread he was talking about. Surely someone knew. She'd ask Katie first. But if I can find a receipt, I'll make it for you. I'd like that, he said with a smile. And if I can find some berries, I'll make sure you get cobbler. Maybe one of the others made some preserves you could use, or even dried fruit may work. I don't know. Do any of the others dry fruit? I don't know. But if not, I could combine that with my baking. That may be something I want to focus on. Talk to your friends tomorrow. I'm certain one of them will be able to help. He stood and stretched. I'm going to get ready for bed. I'm still exhausted from our trip. Myrtle nodded. I am too. I'll wash up the few dishes I have, and then I'll head to bed as well. The only dishes to wash were her teacup and spoon, so she washed those quickly and then changed into her nightgown while he was outside for a moment. There were a lot of things on her mind that night as they settled into bed, and he pulled her close. He kissed her goodnight but didn't try to do more than that. Myrtle couldn't decide if she was happy or disappointed. She was ready to make their marriage a real one, but she was also nervous about what that would entail. She would let him decide when it was time for them to consummate the marriage. Snuggling close to Erin's warm body, she quickly fell asleep, dreaming of a bustling bakery. Myrtle was up well before the sun, and Erin, the following morning. She needed to start baking bread if she was going to make enough for herself, her friends, and the store. After setting the dough aside to rise, she mixed up a simple cake she'd made dozens of times. She didn't know if it would be new for the men in town, or if it was something they'd had before. She baked 6 of the cakes while the bread rose, and once the first few loaves of bread were in the oven, she fixed a simple breakfast of pancakes. She wished she had some bacon to go with them, but that would have to wait, probably until Sally's pigs were ready. After breakfast, she kissed Erin goodbye and put enough bread for her friends into a basket, planning to deliver all the loaves, but she stopped after the basket was full. She only knew where Maggie lived. How could she deliver to all of them? She decided to take the bread to Maggie's and hoped her friends would know to pick it up there. She would certainly tell anyone she saw what she'd done and ask them to spread the word. The baby was crying when Myrtle arrived at Maggie's. Is she all right? Myrtle asked. She's just fussy. She wants to be held all the time, and I don't feel like I can do that. Myrtle nodded. You don't want her spoiled because you need to work on things other than holding her. Exactly, Maggie said, looking down. It breaks my heart to hear her crying like that, but I cannot hold her all the time. I understand the conundrum, Myrtle said. Why don't I hold her for a moment, and maybe I can get her to sleep? Maggie nodded. That would be fine. She's got a clean diaper, and she just ate. She should be sleeping. Myrtle took the baby and walked with her, jiggling her up and down, and within a few minutes, the child was asleep. Maggie gaped at her. How did you do that? Myrtle smiled. I have younger brothers and sisters, and I was always helping my ma with them. Most babies respond well to being held close and walking and bouncing a little as you walk. Well, I'm definitely impressed, Maggie said. I need you to teach me. Myrtle put the baby into the cradle off in a corner of the small cabin. I need to get bread to the store. Everyone is meeting here for lunch if you'd like to join us. I'd love that. Myrtle said. I'll get my store delivery done, and then come back. She paused for a moment. I'm thinking of asking Katie if she'll let me buy a second stove on credit, but I feel guilty even asking. Don't feel guilty, Maggie said. Katie is not afraid to say no when she needs to. All right. I'll probably think about it for a few days before I ask. Afraid to bite off more than you can chew? Myrtle nodded. Exactly. I could really use a second oven, but I don't like owing someone money. Understandable. Do what you feel is right, but don't be afraid to talk to Katie. She makes money off everything we take her to sell. Thanks for the advice, Myrtle said. I'm going to deliver bread now. I made 20 loaves for the store. Maggie smiled. So you made 28 loaves of bread this morning? How do your hands and shoulders feel? Like I made a ridiculous amount of bread this morning. I'll get used to it. You will, Maggie said. Myrtle was still thinking about whether she should talk to Katie about a second stove as she gathered half the bread she'd baked for the store into a basket. It would take her 2 trips. She was certainly going to be able to keep fit with all the walking she'd be doing. Aaron had explained that the cold winters made it difficult to keep horses, and most people walked everywhere, or used the river. It wasn't going to be an easy life. But it would be a good one. She was determined. She decided not to ask Katie about a second stove just yet. Perhaps she would later, but she didn't want to start her new venture in debt. Katie was thrilled with the amount of bread Myrtle took her. There won't be as many disappointed lumbermen as I have most days, the older woman said. Good. If I can make a few lives easier, I'll be very happy. Are you the only one who will be baking for now? Myrtle nodded. I have blueberry pies at home to bring as well. I couldn't carry it all at once. Katie frowned. You need a wagon. Best you talk to your husband about that, and maybe he'll make one this weekend. I agree. That would help me a lot. I could order one, but it would take away from your profits, and I'm under the impression you don't want to lose even a dime. Katie grinned. All of you girls have obviously been supporting yourselves. We have. For a long time. I worked as a laundress before I married Mr. Johnson. I was reluctant to give up the work after having some independence. Mr. Johnson insisted. He pastored a church in Seattle before we decided to move here. He intended to start a church here and run the store, but there just weren't enough people for a church. Katie chuckled. If you girls keep coming, we'll need 2 churches. I'm glad we can worship with you, even if there isn't a real church. Soon, there may need to be. Soon, Katie agreed. I think my husband is looking forward to preaching again and not just teaching a Bible study. It sounds like it was what he was trained to do. Myrtle made a mental file of the information Katie was giving her to relay to her friends. She didn't know if the others knew about Mr. Johnson's background. She picked up her basket. I'll be back within the hour with pies. Mrs. Johnson nodded as Myrtle hurried away. It took Myrtle 2 trips to get all the pies to the store. As she finished dropping off the last of the pies, she sighed. I think I need to make sure Aaron builds me a wagon or cart. Already, she was envisioning what it would need to look like. She wanted one where she could exchange wheels for runners, transforming her wagon into a sled for winter deliveries. And it would need shelves. She would draw up exactly what she wanted when she arrived home. She didn't know what Aaron's building skills were like, but surely there was someone in the Yeti area who would know how to build what she needed. With a wave to Katie, Myrtle hurried home. She drew what she was looking for in a wagon as soon as she'd started the rabbit stew she'd planned for supper. She wondered if perhaps someone should raise rabbits for their meat. She was partial to a rabbit stew. Agnes stopped by late that afternoon. She inhaled deeply. Something smells wonderful. Myrtle smiled. That would be the rabbit stew I'm making for supper. Does anyone raise rabbits? Agnes frowned. I'm not sure if that's even been considered, but rabbits are good meat. I'll talk to Belle about it when I see her. She looked at the drawing Myrtle had made. We missed you at lunchtime. I wasn't thinking about how hard it would be for me to make several trips to the store. I had to go back 3 times with my baked goods. I'm going to ask Aaron if he can build me a wagon this weekend. I have ideas. Agnes laughed. My ideas never stop. I'm constantly thinking of things that would help what we do. And now tomorrow, when you do make it to lunch because I'm going to help you carry everything to the store, we're going to talk about the possibility of raising rabbits for meat. Do you think anyone will want to take it on? Myrtle asked. I would be so happy to have rabbits, but I don't think I can do that along with the baking. Agnes pursed her lips as she thought about it. What about Lula? She's hunted before, so I'm certain she doesn't have trouble with butchering animals. Do you think she could do it? Myrtle smiled, nodding. I think she's the perfect person to do it. She's talked to me quite a bit about how much she loved hunting, and she loves rabbit stew as much as I do. I was planning to take her as much of the stew as I have left. I'm not sure where she lives, though. She goes to Belle's first thing every morning to go hunting with her. Take it to Belle's and she'll make certain Lula gets it. Great idea. I'm excited at the idea of someone raising rabbits. Lula loves to garden as well. Then maybe Lula gardens and raises rabbits. We can certainly talk to her about it. Agnes glanced at the stew pot. Is your stew ready? I'd love a small taste. I've never smelled anything so good. Myrtle hurried over and spooned out a bowl of the stew for her friend. Oh, that's too much. Agnes said. Dump at least half of that back. I still have to cook supper for Jasper. Myrtle did as she was told. I guess you need to eat what you cook with him. You wouldn't want him to think you're poisoning him. Agnes laughed, looking startled by the comment. I forget about your strange sense of humor sometimes. Myrtle shrugged. I need to learn to keep my ideas in my head and out of my mouth. Agnes sat and ate the stew Myrtle had made. I definitely need the receipt for this. It's the most delicious stew I've eaten. I hope you do end up with a bakery and serve soup as well. I would eat there every day. Myrtle laughed softly. Maybe someday I'll be able to make that happen. Chapter 5. Aaron was thrilled with the stew for supper, and Myrtle couldn't help but grin at his compliments. I hope someone's raising rabbits, he said as he pushed away his fourth bowl of the stew. I want to eat that all the time. I was talking to Agnes about that today. I love rabbit stew as well. We think Lula might be willing, but we'll need to talk to her about it, and then figure out how to trap rabbits without hurting them. If someone will agree to raise them, I'll go out and catch the rabbits with my bare hands. He patted his stomach. I can't remember ever being so full, and it feels great. I wanted to eat another 6 bowls. I'll put a container of it in your lunch pail tomorrow. And some fresh baked bread, of course. He eyed what was left of the loaf she'd served for their supper. One heel and nothing else. I think I'm going to get fat being married to you. She laughed. I enjoy cooking and baking. You should start a restaurant. I'm thinking about it. It would be a bakery, and I'd have a different soup every day of the week. Then people could come in to buy a whole pie, or sit and eat one slice. I could do a special of soup, bread, and a slice of pie every day. She sighed. They're lofty dreams. It won't happen overnight. Just so you keep feeding me, I'll be thrilled to help with trapping rabbits, building a bakery and restaurant, or just making pens for someone to keep the rabbits. But I think I will need rabbit stew every day for the rest of my life. She grinned. Wait until you taste my jelly rolls. He smiled. Soon, I hope? Absolutely. She frowned for a moment. That reminds me. I need a wagon, preferably one that I can switch out wheels for runners so I can use it year-round. She pushed the drawing she'd made across the table to him. I want different sections for different types of baked goods. One big section for bread, and smaller sections for pies and cakes. I'm not an architect, but I drew up something I think would work really well. He glanced down at her drawing, studying it carefully. I could build that this weekend if I can find the wheels. Runners I can do easily. I'll talk to the others at work and see if anyone has some old wheels lying around. I don't know if there will be other building projects this weekend, but this needs to be my top priority. I had to make 3 trips to the store and 1 to Belle's today. If I could just put everything in the wagon all at once, I'd have more time to bake. And cook. I won't forget to cook. I'll do everything I can to make it happen, he promised, leaning back in his chair and closing his eyes. Thank you. She stood and poured the pot of water she'd heated for the dishes into the basin. After I finish the dishes, I'll serve the pie. He opened one eye. Pie? You made pie? Sure did. Do you have room left? I'll manage somehow, he smiled. You know, when I first saw you with your friends in Skagway, I was certain things weren't going to work out between us. If I'd let you cook on the trip here, I would have known you were my soul mate much sooner. Myrtle put her hands on her hips and spun around to look at her husband. Oh really? So, you only care about me because I cook for you? He chuckled. You have some good attributes other than your ability to cook. I'd better. She had a smile on her face as she washed the dishes though. Her ma had always told her the way to a man's heart was through his stomach. Based on Erin's reaction to her supper, he'd be following her around like a lost puppy dog in a week. Myrtle met with the other women in Maggie's cabin for lunch the following day. She took the loaves of bread along with her, and plopped one in the middle of the table to go along with their meal. I'd decided to make desserts for half of us one day, and the other half the next day, she announced. That way, I'll have a steady stream of treats for the store as well. She briefly explained that Erin would be making her a wagon to make deliveries easier. And I'll help with your deliveries today, Agnes said. Agnes and I talked yesterday, and we have another idea. Would anyone be willing to raise rabbits? We thought it would be good to breed and butcher them. I love rabbit stew. Agnes nodded emphatically. Myrtle's rabbit stew is delicious. I actually brought some of what I made for supper last night. I hope you all love it as much as Agnes and I do, and you'll want to raise rabbits. Lulu, Josephine, and Ella exchanged glances. We'll talk about it, and I'm sure one of us will do it, Josie said. Myrtle smiled. Thank you. Myrtle went to the door and carried in the pot with her stew in it. She tucked all the bread into a pillowcase to carry it easily, and in her other hand she'd carried the pot by the handle, the lid tightly on it. I warmed it up just before I left, so it should still be hot enough to eat. I made a pot of Belle's duck and dumplings, so we can all have some of each, or choose which one we want, Maggie said. As they all ate together, Belle told a story from hunting with Lula the previous day that had them all laughing. I'm really hoping to get a bear within the next couple of weeks. I think that would give us enough meat for the entire winter. Or 3 more elks. She poked the air with the spoon she was using to eat the rabbit stew. I love the idea of one of us raising rabbits, though. It wouldn't put quite as much stress on us hunting next year, but someone would need to butcher the rabbits. I know I couldn't do it, Maggie said. Myrtle took a deep breath. I'm not certain whether I could either. As much as I love to eat rabbits, I don't think I could kill one. Belle shrugged. I have no problem butchering the meat for my family's meals. None at all. I don't either, Lula said. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I can. I guess it doesn't matter who raises them, as long as Lula or I butcher them, Belle said. Maggie shook her head. I'll stick with foraging. I couldn't eat a bunny I'd named Lola or Bugs or Daffy. You could always name them all Stew. Lula suggested with a grin. After they were all finished laughing, they talked about having pens built for the rabbits. We'll need to decide who is keeping them before we do that, Belle said. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time before winter sets in. They discussed it for a few more minutes before Myrtle changed the subject. Who wants desserts on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? And who wants them on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday? I want to make a regular schedule, so that I can keep track of which families like which dessert best. I'm flexible, Belle said. I can make my own dessert if I need one on a day you're not providing it. Josie shook her head. Look at us. Women who only served others thinking about what day we need dessert. We've come a long way. We really have, Maggie said. Thousands of miles to be back together. She shook her head. Thanks, Belle, for being courageous enough to blaze the trail for the rest of us to follow. After lunch, Agnes followed Myrtle home, and the two of them gathered what they needed to make their delivery to the store. I really appreciate you helping me, Myrtle said as they started their walk. It would still take 2 trips, but the company and the help meant a lot to her. It gives me a chance to catch up with you. How's married life so far? Myrtle wanted to tell her friend that she and Aaron hadn't yet consummated their marriage, but she felt the subject was far too delicate. "I think it's going well," Myrtle said. "Aaron is a good man, and after he got over the initial shock of me bringing 3 of my friends, he's been nothing but kind. He's going to try to get some old wheels to build me the wagon this weekend." "The one you showed me?" Agnes asked. Myrtle nodded. "He said he understands how important it will be for me to have it, so he'll do it if at all possible. We probably need to work on rabbit traps this weekend as well. I talked to Jasper about it last night, and he said he could easily make a simple trap that wouldn't damage the rabbits. As soon as we figure out who will be keeping them, we can start trapping them." "That makes sense. Hopefully someone will claim the task soon." As they went into the store with 20 loaves of bread, Katie smiled. "Oh, I was hoping you'd be here soon." "Do you think you'll make deliveries around this time every day?" she asked. Myrtle nodded. "I do think so. It gives me all morning to bake, and then I can have lunch with my friends, and hopefully have help delivering after. I made 2 dozen small cakes today. We'll be bringing those. For now, this is 20 loaves of bread. Do you think that's enough?" "I don't know if you could make enough," Katie said. "I sell out every day." "That's crazy," Myrtle said. "I'll see if I can do a few more tomorrow. I plan to deliver to you Monday through Saturday, but I'll be taking the Sabbath off." "That sounds very reasonable," Katie said. "I'll happily sell what you bring me." "Thank you. This would be much harder without you helping us." That weekend, Aaron made the wagon to her specifications. He worked all day Saturday and after church on Sunday, but when it was done, it was perfect. There were compartments for pies and cakes, and a large area for bread. She couldn't wait to take it for its inaugural run on Monday. "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you," she squealed as she looked at all of the different areas. She threw herself into his arms and kissed him. Aaron laughed. "I hope it works out well." "It will. It's the next best thing to my own bakery." She ran her hand along the wooden side. "Will it be hard to switch from wheels to runners?" "It's not for me. If it seems hard to you, I'll do it for you before work when it needs to be changed." He turned the wagon on its side, showing her how the wheels detached. "Then you just slide the runners in here. See?" She nodded and put them in herself. "It's not hard at all. I hope it helps you as much as you think it will." "I hope so too." She kissed him again. "You're the most wonderful husband in the whole wide world." He seemed embarrassed by her flattery. "I'm glad you think so. Trust me." "I do." She looked behind her. "Supper's ready if you're hungry." "I am," he said eagerly. He had come to look forward to meals. She was an excellent cook. "What are we having?" "I made a duck pot pie. I've never cooked with duck before, so I hope it's good." Belle said it was mallard. "I'm sure it will be wonderful. I haven't eaten anything you made that I didn't love." "Josie said she'll have whitefish for us by tomorrow afternoon." "I told her it was your favorite," Myrtle said as she set the table. "I can't believe you remembered that." "Of course, I did. I try to pay attention when you tell me anything, especially about your food tastes. I want you to be happy." Aaron smiled at her. "You make me happy. And not just with your cooking," he told her. She served them each a portion of the pot pie. "You're easy to please then, aren't you?" After supper that night, she did the dishes while he put the wheels back on her wagon, so it would be ready to go the following morning. "I've heard lots of men talking about your baking the past few days." "Oh, I'm so glad. I was worried I wouldn't be able to hold a candle to Belle and Maggie. Belle always intimidated me a little, because it seems she's so good at everything." "You don't seem the type to be intimidated easily," he said. "I'm not. Belle is just really good at everything." "Do you know her at all?" "Just what I've seen of her at our service on Sundays, and she tends to talk to the other women, not the men. But there weren't always many women. At first, she only really talked to Mrs. Johnson. And then the other women started to arrive. It feels like a real town now that there are ladies here. She laughed. I never dreamed there was a place that was only populated by men. Alaska is as unusual as it is beautiful. He took her hand and pulled her to him. I'm just glad that you're here with me. It gets lonely during the long, cold nights of winter. Her heart beat faster as she was closer to him. I'm glad to be here, with you. He lowered his head and kissed her slowly, as if testing the waters to see if she was ready for more. When she wrapped her arms around him and kissed him back, he had his answer. He picked her up and carried her to their bed. Myrtle returned kiss for kiss and touch for touch. Clothes were thrown in every direction, and when he finally joined their bodies, she knew she was right where she belonged. In bed with her husband. After, they lay together, the cover somewhere out of reach. We're going to get cold eventually, she said absently. But I know how to warm us both up. Chapter 6. The following afternoon, after her lunch with her friends, Myrtle walked toward town, ready to deliver her wares to Katie. She was surprised when there were two men in her path. We missed getting bread and dessert yesterday. Mrs. Johnson was sold out by the time we got there, the taller man said. Can we buy directly from you? Myrtle thought about it for a moment, unsure what to do. Finally, she nodded. Yes, of course. She named a price for the bread. I'm not sure about the jelly rolls. I don't know what Mrs. Johnson would charge. I'll give you $1 for one, the man said. Myrtle's eyes widened. In Massachusetts, a jelly roll would only be a quarter or less. That sounds fair. The man grinned and pressed the money into her hand before choosing a loaf of bread and a jelly roll. The second man had the money in his hand and did the same. He'd never spoken, but he was obviously as eager for the baked goods as his friend. The men ate the jelly rolls before they were out of sight, and after watching them stroll away in bemusement, Myrtle resumed her walk to the store. She was surprised to see the store completely full of men. Instead of engaging one of them in conversation, she walked straight to Katie and showed her what she'd brought. She didn't even have time to unload the wagon. Men would give Katie money, and they would choose bread and jelly rolls. Most of the rolls were consumed right there before the men hurried out the door to get back to work. Within minutes, everything Myrtle had baked disappeared, and Katie laughed at Myrtle's bemused expression. You'll get used to it. Do you have anything left? Myrtle looked into the wagon. One loaf of bread and some crumbs. I'll take the bread for my own supper, but you may keep the crumbs, Katie said, a grin on her face. Some men stopped me on the way here, saying they didn't get anything yesterday. I'm not surprised at all. I told them you would be coming in early afternoon. Did I make a mistake selling to them before coming here? Katie laughed. The only mistake is for me. I don't get my share, but I didn't sell anything, so I don't deserve a share. You may want to double up on that bread order. Have you thought about buying a second stove? I have, I just don't have the money yet. I'll get there. It would help us both if you bought one on credit, and you would pay it off much faster than you could earn a new one. Katie shrugged. The credit is available, as I know you'll bring me baked goods to pay it off. Myrtle bit her lip. I've thought and thought about it. I hate going into debt. It's a business expense. You've heard you can't make money without spending money? Myrtle had never been impulsive where shopping was concerned. But she knew Katie was right. All right. Let's do it. I ordered one yesterday. It'll be here in a few weeks. You were that sure of me? Katie nodded, her eyes filled with mirth. I was. You're determined to make money for your family, and this is how you want to do it. I just wish you could build a bakery. That would make things easier for you. I wish I could too. Maybe in a few years. Myrtle sighed. Did you order the same stove I already have? I did. It's a good one. I know because I ordered it for you a couple of months ago. Aaron was so excited to have a gift waiting for you when you arrived. He was? Myrtle smiled. Her husband was one in a million. Katie nodded. All of the men who have sent for wives have done something special for them before they got here. They're ready to give up the long, lonely Alaska nights and have someone beside them. As Myrtle walked home, she thought about what Katie had said. It had been very sweet of Aaron to buy her a stove, and here she was getting another. She hoped she could keep up with the demand for baked goods in Yeti. When she got home, she spotted fresh fish on the table, already cleaned and ready to cook. She smiled to herself. It must be the whitefish Aaron had told her he loved. She'd dredge it in flour and fry it up with some potatoes and serve it with the loaf of bread she'd set aside for their supper. When Aaron got home that afternoon, he walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her. "Something smells wonderful. When I got home from taking my baked goods to the store, there were a few pieces of cleaned fish on the table. I'm guessing Agnes caught some whitefish, and she knew I wanted to make some for you, so she delivered." She turned in his arms and raised her lips for his kiss. "Since the fish was already clean, I'm just guessing it was whitefish." He kissed her slowly and thoroughly, making her tingle all the way down to her toes. "Yep, that's definitely whitefish." He planted one more kiss on her lips. "I can't wait to try it. I just hope there's more where this comes from. Do you like it smoked as well?" "I like it any way I can get it. Fresh fried is my favorite, but that doesn't mean it's the only way I'll eat it. You cook it, and I will eat it. I'm excited for the bacon that will be coming in the spring. Can you imagine bacon with our breakfast every day?" "Bacon? Where are we getting bacon from?" he asked. "Didn't I tell you? Sally is raising pigs. We'll get a share, just like she gets desserts and bread from us." "I love bacon." Aaron smiled. "I should have known one of you would raise pigs. We're all trying to make our own lives and each other's lives easier. I hope it works. If we get bacon out of it, then I say it works." He moved to the table and sat in a chair to pull his boots off. "It's starting to get too cold to work without gloves. I don't suppose you knit?" "I have holes in both of mine." "I do. I'll make new gloves this weekend if that works for you." He nodded. "I can get by with the holey ones until then." He stretched. "I'll be working in the lumber mill tomorrow. I prefer it to felling trees, but I only get a turn every few weeks. The 3 men whose wives I brought back from Skagway are all giving me their turns to repay me. And they've also each given me a little money to pay for expenses." "Oh, that's good. Then me bringing 3 friends wasn't too much of a burden. I think it will help us in the end. I'm thankful not to have to work so many days outside." She scooped the fish from the frying pan and filled 2 plates with the fish and potatoes before cutting the bread she'd made that morning. She carried the plates and the bread to the table, along with a small amount of butter. "I wish we had a cow." He shook his head. "They don't survive well in Alaska's interior. I know some people near the ocean raise them without a problem, but we really can't. Agnes has goats, but she said it's really hard to make butter from their cream. She is sharing goat cheese, though." "I like goat cheese," he said as he buttered his bread. She poured 2 cups of coffee and set them on the table before taking her seat. "I don't think I've ever had whitefish. I hope I love it as much as you do." "So, do I. If you love it too, then you'll make it more often." She laughed. "I'll make it as often as I can, whether I like it or not. I'm not a horribly picky eater." "That's a good thing. I've survived for years on mostly jerky and hardtack. You ladies are making it so we have a variety in our diets again. I have to say, I like it. I hope you like dessert tonight. I made a blueberry cobbler. Maggie found wild blueberries in the summer, and she dried and canned them. This cobbler is from dried, so I'm not sure how it turned out. I'm experimenting, so I can decide whether I can sell them or not. I'll be happy to give my opinion. So far, I haven't had a single complaint about anything you've cooked." He cut into his fish and took a small bite, closing his eyes as the flavors rolled around in his mouth. "I would love it if you'd make this every night for the rest of our lives. I'm glad I did a good job with that. I just guessed at how to fix it. It's wonderful. I love it with the fried potatoes." When she served the blueberry cobbler, she watched his face carefully. He took a bite and nodded. I think it's good. Just sweet enough. You can serve this every night as well. Then I won't be afraid to sell it. Thank you. She cut into her own piece. Maybe a tad bit more sugar. I don't think you should change it at all. Then I won't. Myrtle smiled at him. You're a good man to experiment with cooking on. He chuckled. You cook it, and I'll eat it. She took a deep breath. Katie talked me into buying a second stove on credit today. She'd actually ordered it before talking to me. I'll pay for it myself, of course, but I wanted you to know that I'd done it. He frowned for a moment. I hate being in debt, but if you think it will work out well for us, then that's fine. More than anything, Katie wants more baked goods to sell. She briefly told him of how two men had met her before she'd reached town to buy from her. He smiled. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens more and more. We'll see how the winter goes, but that bakery may be a necessity by spring. That would make me so happy. I could make a soup of the day, and baked goods, and have a small eating area. He chuckled. You may be getting just a little bit ahead of yourself. I'm not so sure. It helps to have a plan. Something I can look forward to. Aaron finished his cobbler and pushed the plate away. I wish I'd saved a little more room for cobbler, but that whitefish was too good. She smiled. I'll make cobblers to sell tomorrow. And we'll have plenty left for tomorrow night. I won't say no to leftovers. He rubbed his stomach. I haven't eaten this well since I was a little boy. No, that's not true. I've never eaten this well, but don't tell my grandma. I won't. I'm just happy you enjoy my cooking. She stood to clear the table. Would you like another cup of coffee? He shook his head. I couldn't even have another drop of water, I'm so full. Well, good. That tells me you really did enjoy supper. I'll pack some of the whitefish, potatoes, and cobbler for your lunch tomorrow. If you want to marry off more friends from Massachusetts, that's the way to do it. All of the men watch those of us who have married at lunchtime, and we can see their envy. I used to hate it, but then I got married, and now, I kind of love it. She laughed. Don't be mean about it. By the time they were ready for bed, Myrtle had planned out the next few days of baking. She wanted to keep making a good impression. The more she baked, the more money she made. It was amazing. Back in Beckham, it didn't matter how hard she worked. She made the same amount of money. Here, it seemed the sky was the limit, and she was reaching for the stars. There were 4 men waiting on the trail to town the following day. Each of them had a tin plate in their hand. They all paid for a loaf of bread and a piece of her blueberry cobbler. Thank you, the last man said as he paid her. You're welcome. I'll be walking this way around this time Mondays through Saturdays. If you want to make sure you get some baked goods, feel free to wait here for me, and I'll sell them. One of the other men grinned at her. I watched Aaron eat this cobbler for dessert a few minutes ago. When he told me that's what you were taking to the store, I made sure to get some. A tall, dark-haired man nodded. What do you think you'll be making tomorrow? I missed out on your jelly rolls. Katie gave me the receipt for Eskimo fry bread. I thought I'd try that tomorrow. I have some icing sugar that I'll be dusting over it. Myrtle felt strange finding customers for her baked goods on the way to town, but she wasn't complaining. The man who had asked what she'd be making smiled. Sounds delicious. I'll be waiting. Me too, the other 3 men echoed. Myrtle smiled. I'll see you all tomorrow then. She had a skip in her step the rest of the way into town. Her baked goods were a hit, and that put her one step closer to having her own bakery. Katie happily took all the baked goods. I don't know what I'll do when you start that bakery of yours. I'll miss getting bread for my own supper delivered. Myrtle laughed softly. I have a feeling we could make sure you still get a loaf delivered every day. That would please me a great deal. What are you making tomorrow? The men have been asking. I'm going to try the receipt you gave me for Eskimo fry bread. I thought I'd dust it with confectioner's sugar. That sounds lovely. I'll tell Mr. Johnson. He loves fry bread. Myrtle nodded. Aaron told me it's one of his favorite desserts as well. I'll try it and probably tweak the receipt some to suit myself. Katie nodded. I'm not a creative cook. I follow receipts exactly. I think it's great you're not afraid to do what you want with a receipt. Oh, I never make anything exactly the same way twice. I love to bake, but my favorite part is making a receipt my own. I look forward to trying yours. Katie shook her head. I love chatting with you, Myrtle, but you need to go. The men are going to swarm the register for your bread and cobbler otherwise. Myrtle turned around to see that the store was suddenly full of men to the point it would be hard to get back out. She couldn't describe how happy that made her. Chapter 7. At lunch the following day, Myrtle told her friends about the men who met her on her way to town every day to buy her wares. I get about halfway to town, and there they are. The first day, there were 2. The second day, there were 4. And the ones I saw yesterday told me they'd be waiting for me today. Belle laughed. That's how it was when I first started to bake. The men would crowd into the store and be there when I arrived. Once Emmett was annoyed because all his men had abandoned their tasks, and he scolded me in public. The next day, there was a man telling me he didn't mind if I was divorced. He'd marry me anyway. Myrtle giggled. I haven't gotten a marriage proposal yet. Hopefully, you won't. Maggie said, shaking her head. Sometimes it feels as if the men were starved before we arrived. I know. Myrtle said. That reminds me. I have Eskimo fry bread for anyone who wants dessert today. Sally tilted her head to one side as if she was considering. What will you make tomorrow? Donuts with cinnamon and sugar. I think I'm also going to try a few meat pies and see how they sell. Myrtle looked at Belle. Would you be willing to share some venison roast for my little experiment? Since Lulu and I both got bears yesterday, you can have lots of venison. We should be set for the winter for all of us now. A few more days of hunting, and we won't worry about meat at all, Belle said. I've never had bear, Josie said. Is it good? Belle shrugged. I like it. I use it in stews or roasts. It can taste like salmon or berries. It tastes better if the bear has eaten a lot of berries and fewer fish. The main thing is you have to cook it long and slow. No pink. The meat can kill you if it's not cooked all the way through. If you don't cook it a long time, it can be tough to eat. It's kind of like beef but sweeter. Myrtle tilted her head to one side. I wonder if that would be better for my meat pies than venison. I'm not sure. I prefer it as a stew. It's good with carrots, potatoes, and onion. Some of the onions you can find foraging really help the flavor, Maggie said. Thank you, I know how to cook it now. Since the men always brought their plates, she could even make a stew, but she wasn't sure how easily Katie could sell it. For now, she'd stick with venison pies and experiment with different ways to make bear stew in the winter. Lula related the story of how she'd shot the bear. She seemed proud of herself, but she tried to be modest. Maggie was still taking it easy and caring for both babies while the other women worked. I may just make my job taking care of all the babies, she said, and everyone turned to look at her. I thought you were going to wear your baby when you foraged, Belle said. I was thinking about it, but all of us will keep having babies, I think. If we have one person designated to watch them, it will be easier on the children, Maggie said. The women all looked around, waiting for someone to respond. Finally, Belle said something. I think if you show the others what they can forage in the spring, that will work. You could wear the baby for that short time, and then none of us would need to worry about how we do our chores. They all nodded in agreement, but Myrtle was surprised. Didn't Maggie want to keep earning for her family? Perhaps she was expecting to be paid for watching the children, which seemed fair, but it was just different than she'd expected. After lunch, Myrtle set out for town with her wagon. The group of men had more than doubled in size. She sold them what she had. What are you making for dessert tomorrow? Asked the same man who had wanted to know yesterday. Donuts with cinnamon and sugar. Myrtle saw that she only had 10 loaves of bread left. The new stove couldn't get there fast enough. We'll be here, one of the other men replied. As Myrtle continued walking, the money she'd received from the men in her apron pocket, she decided to start making payments on the stove with the money she made on her way to the store. That seemed like the perfect plan to her. It was all Myrtle could do to save a loaf of bread for Katie as she walked through the store. The men grabbed things from her wagon and moved to stand in line to pay. It seemed strange to Myrtle, but Katie seemed to take it in stride. She walked up to the counter, ignoring the line, and gave Katie both the food that was left in her wagon and the money she'd earned on her way. I hope to have that new stove paid for before it arrives, Myrtle said softly. Katie grinned. You're making a good start. Myrtle all but danced on her way to her cabin. She couldn't wait to tell Aaron that she'd already started paying for the stove. She knew it would ease his mind. She made meat pies for supper with the venison Belle had put on her table while she was gone. The hardest part was chopping the meat fine enough, and Myrtle realized she would need a meat grinder with a hand crank if she was going to make meat pies often. It took too long to chop the pieces small enough with a knife, though she managed to get it done. Aaron was thrilled to hear that she'd already begun to pay Katie for the stove. I thought it would take you months of having the new stove to make a payment. I've decided to pay Katie whatever the men pay me on my way to the store. That way, I'll pay it off faster, but we'll still get some pocket money from all the work we're doing. Myrtle gripped her apron and used it to pull the meat pies from the oven. I'm making donuts tomorrow, but I think I'm going to make meat pies as well. I want you to tell me how they are. She put 2 pies the size of his hands on his plate, but only one on her own. I need your honest thoughts. Aaron nodded. I'm getting used to telling you what I think. He carefully cut off a bite with the side of his fork and plopped it into his mouth, chewing slowly. I think it needs just a little more pepper, but it's good. Thank you. I'll add more for the ones I sell tomorrow. And I want you to tell me if any of the men tell you what they like or don't like about them. I will. The men loved the fry bread. Some said they would have liked jam or jelly on them. Or maple syrup or honey. They liked the way you did it, but they would have liked jelly best. Myrtle nodded. I'll think on how I can make that happen. I think it's perfect the way you did it, of course. She laughed. Now you can't go telling me everything's perfect when you know of a way to improve it. I want to serve only the best when I open my bakery. Aaron raised an eyebrow. So now it's when you open and not if? Myrtle nodded emphatically. Yes, it is. Honestly, I'd like to open in spring. I could spend the winter deciding what to bake based on how quickly it sells and the feedback I get. Then I'd open in spring. I'd have a soup or stew every day, so the men could come for lunch if they wanted to. He frowned. And would you still be open at supper time? I think I'd open for breakfast and lunch, but I wouldn't stay open past 4 in the afternoon. Then if men wanted to get some soup for supper, they'd have to be there with their plate by then. My only request is that you don't let the bakery take away from our time together. He shook his head. I sent for a wife so I could have her around, not so the town would get a bakery. I understand. And I'll do everything I can to make that happen. I'm hoping to have a partner who wants to work with me by spring, but I don't want to have to wait if no one is interested. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. I guess it's all right then. She smiled at him. How about some blueberry cobbler for dessert? I don't get to try the donuts before you sell them? Now I'm sad. She laughed. I'll make certain you have some for breakfast. That's my girl. Myrtle was up well before dawn the following day to make the donuts. She'd often made them with her mother, so she knew well the time they took. She had the first batch out of the pot of oil before she woke Aaron. You never sleep this late. I have your breakfast ready. He grunted. All right, I'm getting up. A few minutes later he was at the table, ready for his coffee and breakfast. It's crazy, but I think I'm still recovering from the trip to Skagway and back. Myrtle smiled. I understand completely. That was a difficult journey, and I only had to go one way. But you'd already crossed the country and taken a boat up to Alaska. That's true. Let's just say it was hard on both of us. She sat down across from him with her own coffee and donuts. As she took the first bite, she remembered why she'd begged her mother for donuts every chance she got. They were delicious. Aaron took a bite of his own and grinned. These are fabulous. Don't change a thing. I was hoping you'd feel that way. I also make them with a sugar glaze, but this is my favorite way to eat them. You're spoiling me, you know. I'm going to expect delicious baked goods every day for the rest of my life. She laughed. I will do my very best to make that happen. Are you making enough that I could have a couple for dessert with my lunch? Of course. You always get first pick at my baked goods. You know that. She cocked her head to one side. I should actually send you to work with whatever I'm making for everyone the next day. You would be a great advertisement. He laughed. Let's not make my friends any more envious than they already are. He watched as she stood, and using a slotted spoon, removed more of the donuts from the pot. How many are you making? I want to make a half dozen for each of my friends. Then another 6 or 8 dozen for the store. I already have the bread in the oven. She shook her head. It's hard work, but I love it, so it doesn't seem so bad. She packed 3 meat pies into his lunch pail, and then used a layer of brown paper, before adding the donuts. I don't want you to not eat the meat pies because you have donuts. Real food first. He chuckled. I love your meat pies too much to skip them. I'm going to be too fat to carry an axe before long. She giggled. You could use a little fattening up. And it was true. Whether it was because he worked off everything he ate, or because he ate so little when his only foods were jerky and hardtack, he was a slender man. He really could use a bit of bulking up, just not too much, he said with a grin. He kissed the top of her head as he headed out the door, musing that his life was so much better than it had been before she came. As soon as the bread was out of the oven, Myrtle put meat pies in its place. She decided to only make 2 dozen meat pies because she wasn't certain that savory foods would sell as well as sweets. When she arrived at Maggie's house for lunch, she told the others what she'd made for the day. I'm hoping the men like my meat pies as much as they love the sweet treats. I'm always amazed at how quickly everything sells. Belle smiled. I got 2 more deer yesterday with Lula's help. If the meat pies go well, you can have that venison for your pies. That would be wonderful. I feel like I'm using too much of our meat stores. Sally shook her head. No, you're not. There's no more room in the 2 cold houses. If we don't want meat to be wasted, we need to use it. There are still a couple of weeks of hunting to be done. Really? Myrtle asked, feeling excited. And how is the whitefish coming, Agnes? I have so much whitefish. I'm smoking most of it, but I can get you some for supper again tonight if you want, Agnes replied. That would make my husband very happy. Does anyone have receipts for whitefish? Last time I just breaded it and fried it with some potatoes, and he was pleased, but I'd like a little variety. Belle shook her head. I don't. I have a receipt for trout that I think you could easily adapt for whitefish, Ella said. It's one my ma used to make all the time, and I love it. Would you mind bringing me the receipt at lunch tomorrow? Myrtle asked. I'd be happy to. Then you can pick my dessert I make tomorrow, Myrtle said. And she knew she'd make extra for Ella and her husband. I want fried pies. Apples if we have some. Myrtle looked at the others. Maggie shook her head. Apples don't grow well here. I've heard crabapple can grow here, but we don't have any. We have lots and lots of berries though. Myrtle frowned. I can make mixed berry fried pies. Ella nodded. Mixed berry sounds wonderful. Will you sell some as well? I will. I'll make sure everyone here gets some, and I'll sell some. My arms and shoulders are finally getting used to kneading all that dough. They all talked then of how they were adapting to their new work. I have a bruise on my shoulder from shooting, Lula said. Thankfully, we've switched to bows and arrows now that we have our bears. Life is certainly harder here than I imagined it would be, Josie said. Harder but infinitely better, Belle said, smiling. I wouldn't go back for all the money in the world. Chapter 8. Even as she worked to build her baking business, it was always in the back of Myrtle's mind that she'd done something wrong by bringing her friends. At the time, it had seemed logical. Only one man would need to miss work to make the journey to Skagway and back. But in retrospect, she knew she should have gotten Aaron's permission before doing something like that. She'd been in Yeti for 4 weeks when her stove was delivered. Mr. Johnson brought it himself, and he took care of setting it up. It was the same as the one she'd been using, so it was going to be easy to double her production. At least she hoped it would. Soon she'd be baking 40 loaves of bread per day, as well as double the number of sweet treats. She wasn't certain if she wanted to make 2 different types of treats per day so people would have a choice to make, or if she would stick to making one thing, but just make more of it. She decided she'd ask the other ladies when she went to lunch. Mr. Johnson made quick work of getting her second oven ready to use, so she was on time for lunch. The others were still trickling in when she announced she had another oven. "Do you think I should make 2 types of treats per day now, or just make more of the one kind?" Belle shrugged. "I think you'll make the men happy whichever way you decide." She looked around. "Would you ladies like to have a selection?" Agnes wrinkled her nose. "I think I'd like choices if it were me. Perhaps a cookie and a cake? Or a cookie and a pie? Or a cookie and muffins?" She laughed. "I think I'm hungry for cookies." "It sure sounds like it," Myrtle responded, a grin on her face. The women were split on what they would do, so she decided to ask her little market of men who grew bigger every day. They would give her their opinions on how many things to make per day and what those things should be. So, after lunch, Myrtle set off for town with her wagon pulling behind her. She'd had to switch from wheels to the runners, but it wasn't so terribly cold she felt the need to stay indoors. The snow was picturesque in the beautiful valley where Yeti was located. There were at least 10 men waiting for her that day, and when she stopped, she said, "No one is allowed to buy anything today unless they answer my survey." One of her regulars who never missed a day nodded. "What's the survey?" "I got a second stove today. Would you like me to just double up on the dessert I make every day, or would you like me to make 2 so there would be choices?" The man who had asked about the survey shrugged. "I want your sugar cookies with the icing every day. I don't care what else you do." Myrtle grinned and nodded. "Noted." He took his usual loaf of bread and bought the cookies he'd just requested from her, grinning. "I could eat these things every day." "I will try my best to make them often," she said. Each man told her his preference as he purchased the food he wanted from her. When all was said and done, it seemed like they didn't care if they had choices, as long as there were sweets. So, she would ask Katie and Aaron, and whatever they told her, she would agree to. When she got to the store, she handed off her baked goods to Katie. "Now that the new stove is ready to go, I'm trying to decide if I should make 2 different treats in the same amount I already do, or if I should just double the amount I make." Katie pursed her lips, thinking about it. "You'll double the bread regardless, right?" Myrtle nodded. "Absolutely. Then I think I would stick to 1 treat per day. The men are all happy to buy whatever you make. Perhaps you could take special orders. Whoever got their requests in first, you would make what they ask for." "I could. I think a lot of the men will feel slighted, though." She reached into the wagon to remove the cookies. "I did sugar cookies with icing today." "Oh, the men love those. I'll have no trouble selling them at all." "Is there anything they've said they don't like?" Katie shook her head. "No, not at all. They just get all excited if there are treats left when they get here. The line of men on my way here is getting bigger." "That's fine. You have a right to sell directly to the men. Just try to have some left for us to sell." Katie smiled. "I really think you should try to open a bakery in the spring. I know that's a lot to think about, but you are so consistent with the quality of your baking. And if you made a soup every day as well, I don't think my store would sell much, but that would be all right." Myrtle smiled. "I'm glad you don't mind." She handed the last of the cookies to Katie. "What do I still owe on the stove?" "It's half paid for," Katie said. "Another few weeks, and you won't have to worry about it at all. That will help ease Aaron's mind." He doesn't like being in debt at all. Katie shook her head. It's a business expense. You can't make money without spending some. I've heard that before. Myrtle looked down at the empty wagon. I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll have more to sell, unless there are more men on the path here and they buy me out. I keep worrying that's going to happen. Katie smiled. If it does, it does. Just save a loaf of bread and a dessert for Mr. Johnson and me. I will. As she walked home, Myrtle thought about how the spot on the path where the men met her would be a perfect spot to build her bakery. The men already met her there and were used to it. Perhaps she should look into who owned the land. She made fried whitefish for supper that night, being sure to make enough that Aaron could take some for lunch the following day. When he walked in the door, he sniffed deeply. I can already taste it. How long till supper? Myrtle smiled. Another 5 minutes. By the time you get washed up, it'll be on the table. He washed his hands in the basin of water she'd already set up for washing the dishes after supper. He was already sitting at the table when he realized the new stove was there. Oh. It came. She nodded. I'm so excited to be able to bake double tomorrow. Don't wear yourself out. Remember you're here to feed me and not the whole town. She laughed. I'll do my best. She put both plates on the table and poured 2 cups of coffee before sitting down across from him. After they prayed, she asked the question she'd asked everyone all day. Do you think I should make double of whatever dessert I decide on for a day, or should I make 2 different desserts? He looked pensive for a moment before asking, if you make 2 different desserts, will I get one of each? Myrtle shook her head. You would narrow it down to something so simple. Yes, you would get 2 desserts. Then I'll need you to start making 2 different desserts. He applied himself to the fish. We'll have smoked whitefish this winter, right? We will. I'm even trading part of our share of salmon for more whitefish. Belle doesn't much care for whitefish, so she's taking some of our salmon, and we're taking all of her whitefish. I hope Everett doesn't mind. Myrtle shrugged. I asked Belle if he would mind not having it, and she said he'd be glad not to have it, so she wouldn't feel the need to cook it for him because he knows she doesn't like it. Works for me then. He reached out and squeezed her hand. Thanks for making my favorite. I'm always happy to make it. I only wish I could serve it fresh all winter. She looked at her plate for a moment. Katie told me today that she thinks I should open a bakery in the spring. He sighed. Is that still something you're thinking about? Unless you really don't want me to do it, she said, watching him. Would it be more or less work for you? Probably more. Right now, the men bring me their dishes they've cleaned, and I put their portion of dessert on them. In a bakery, I'd be washing my own dishes. I really hope to partner with someone, though. Then they could wash dishes and serve customers while I bake and cook. He was quiet for a moment. How about we agree to this? If you find someone to partner with you, and you won't be doing all the work alone, I think it would be fine. I don't like the idea of you working even harder than you already do. She nodded, pulling something from the pocket she'd sewn onto her apron. Here's the extra money it cost you to bring the other women back from Skagway. All 4 of us pitched in with our own earnings. He blinked. I didn't expect this. It's the right thing to do. She took a bite of her fish. Oh. Katie told me the stove was already half paid for. And we have a good balance at the store. She briefly explained that the money she made on the way to the store was put toward the cost of the stove, but the money she made at the store was just added to their account for future purchases. So you can't get the money you've earned? We can only have it in store credit? Aaron asked, not liking that idea at all. No. I can request the money I've made at any time. Oh, good. He resumed eating. What's for dessert? She laughed, not surprised he was back to thinking about his sweet tooth. The man seemed to be ravenous for anything she was willing to bake. I made sugar cookies with icing. Oh, good. I love those. He stopped with his fork halfway to his mouth. Do you know what would be amazing? If you used your sugar cookies as a crust for cobbler, I think you should try that just for me, and if it turns out well, which I know it will, you could make it for the other men. As long as I got a huge share. I can try that. Do you have a special fruit in mind? Myrtle had never tried to make something like that, but it wouldn't be difficult. Not with all the pie filling her friends had canned earlier in the year. Blueberry. No, salmonberry, no, raspberry. Why don't I do a mixed berry the first time? Then you can decide which flavors you want the next time, if it doesn't turn out to be a disaster. He raised an eyebrow. I don't think it would even be possible for you to bake something that didn't turn out perfectly. Are you saying that you're not perfect in every way? She laughed heartily at the question. I'm the woman who showed up with 3 friends for what was supposed to be a honeymoon trip. He chuckled. You did, didn't you? While she washed the dishes that night, he ate all the cookies she had left at home for his meal. When she turned from the stove, she shook her head. Now you won't have cookies with your lunch tomorrow. He frowned. But, I like cookies. She sighed. Maybe I could take you some dessert to the lumberyard. Are you still working at the sawmill? He nodded. Sure am. Then I'll try. If I have time, I'll bring them before lunch. If I wait until after, I will be too busy. If you can. It's my fault for eating everything you left for dessert for tonight and lunch tomorrow. I could get up a little early and have something ready for you to take. That would make my day easier. She tilted her head to one side and thought about it. That's what I'll do. You need your rest. That's not what you said when you woke me up in the middle of the night last night. He chuckled. I needed you more than you needed rest. Apparently. She shook her head. I'll be fine getting up a little early. I'll just go to bed a little earlier than usual tonight. Aaron stood and took her hand. Right now would be good. Then you could still fall asleep a little early. You're something else, Aaron Fielding. Have I told you that before? He tugged her toward their bed. You get undressed while I turn down the lamps. She did as she was told, knowing it would please them both. Making love with Aaron was one of the great joys of her life. By the time the lamps were put out, she was undressed and sliding under the covers of the bed. She'd learned that he preferred she not sleep in a nightgown. The colder it got, the more worried she got that he'd be disappointed when winter set in hard. She wasn't going to freeze to death so she could be naked for him. He quickly stripped and joined her in the bed, pulling her toward him immediately, his hands roaming over her body. Ah. Naked Myrtle. Just how I like her. Myrtle giggled and moved to kiss him. Married life was better than she'd imagined it could be. Chapter 9. The following day, Myrtle made sugar cookies again, along with several cakes. And she made a small cobbler with the sugar cookie dough for Aaron to take to work. He was thrilled, and it was obvious he was having trouble not grabbing a fork and taking a bite right then. Of course, Myrtle was certain a fork was the last thing on his mind. He'd probably eat it with his fingers if he thought he could get away with it. At lunch, she carried in a second cobbler to share with her friends, also with the sugar cookie dough. She wanted their opinion on Aaron's idea. After they'd eaten the stew Maggie had made for them, she set the cobbler in the center of the table. Aaron asked me if I would make this. It's something I've never even thought of trying to bake, so I want your opinions on it. The crust is sugar cookie, and the filling is mixed berry. Josie grinned. I'm intrigued. It sounds good, but I don't know if I would have ever thought of making it. Aaron has such a sweet tooth. I asked him about whether I should make 1 dessert per day or 2, and he opted for 2, because he wants to eat 2 desserts. As they laughed, the women each took a piece of the cobbler. Myrtle watched with trepidation, hoping she'd found a signature dessert for her bakery. She could easily make it every day, and along with sugar cookies, it would be something she served daily, and everything else would rotate. Belle sighed after taking a bite. I want this for my next dessert day, which is tomorrow. All of the women nodded eagerly. It's delicious, Ella said. I've never had anything quite like it. Well, I guess I know what I'm making tomorrow, Myrtle said with a smile. Then she changed the subject. She needed to find out who owned the land she had inadvertently set up as her marketplace. It was where all the men met her daily, so she was certain it would be the best place for her bakery when she was able to build it. Do any of you know who owns the land along the path where there are 4 tree stumps? Many of the men used them as chairs, so it was easy to remember they were there. Oh, I'm pretty sure that's part of Mr. and Mrs. Johnson's land. Why? Belle asked. It's where the men have been meeting me on my way to the store. I thought it would be the perfect place to build a bakery, Myrtle said. Maggie nodded. I think that would be really smart. And I would be willing to bet Katie would rent you the land or even sell it to you if you wanted it. I agree, Agnes said. Katie has been our best supporter as we've all tried to create our little cooperative business here. Myrtle nodded. I'll talk to her when I drop my baked goodies off today. There was no harm in asking if the land was available to buy or rent, was there? Oh, I need 2 loaves of bread today, Lula said. I plan to serve stew and bread that's been hollowed out for supper. No problem. Katie told me yesterday that she doesn't care how much I sell before I get to the store as long as I keep some bread and a dessert for her and Mr. Johnson. I made them a small cobbler like the one I brought. Just to thank her for all she does. That's sweet, Josie said. But you're always sweet. Not as sweet as my desserts. Myrtle replied, getting to her feet. She gave each of her friends their bread. Does everyone want cobbler tomorrow? Yes. Josie said, I actually think I want to eat that every day for the rest of my life. Myrtle shook her head at her friend. You're silly. Can I walk to town with you? Josie asked. Myrtle nodded. Of course. Just know we'll be selling on the way. No problem. As they got out of earshot of the cabin, Myrtle asked, Is everything all right? Josie nodded. We just haven't had any time to chat one-on-one. We've all been so busy since we arrived. Myrtle agreed. How is married life treating you? Josie shrugged. Mostly good. It's certainly different than it was when we were back in Beckham. I love that we all get to start over in a new place, but we still have each other, if that makes sense. Of course. I agree completely. I do wish I'd started out with Aaron better than I did. I really shouldn't have brought you 3 without his approval, but that didn't occur to me until we were face to face in Skagway. Is he angry with you? Myrtle shook her head. He says he's not, but I don't imagine how he couldn't be. We were supposed to be on a honeymoon, and instead, it was him with 4 women. Myrtle spotted the men ahead of her. Do you want to wait and walk the rest of the way with me? Josie nodded. I'd really like that. All right. Myrtle quickly sold some of the bread and desserts. The man who had asked for sugar cookies every day smiled at her. Are you taking my advice and making sugar cookies every day? He asked. I'll try to do them more often. Life is sure better with you ladies in it. Myrtle smiled and filled his plate with cookies, giving him one more than he had paid for. He noticed, and his whole face lit up. Thank you, Mrs. Fielding. As Myrtle and Josie resumed their walk, Josie asked what Aaron thought about her opening a bakery. Myrtle sighed. He'll only agree if I have a partner to share the work. He thinks I do too much already. He's probably right, Josie said, but we all do. It's so nice to be in charge of our own lives after so long at the hotel. I agree. How do you like working with Agnes? Oh, I love Agnes. Now that the foraging has dried up some, I've been knitting a lot. The men seem to go through gloves at a ridiculous rate. I'm happy to keep them supplied. I brought a few things for Katie to sell, Josie said, holding up her bag. Do you enjoy knitting? Myrtle asked. She hadn't ever known Josie to knit. I'm good at it, Josie said. We can't all enjoy our jobs. What would you rather do? Have you thought about raising animals? Josie shook her head. I couldn't butcher them. I'm too soft-hearted. What about making jelly or jam and selling it? Josie sighed. It doesn't feel right. I mean, I'll make them for my family, but it's not what I want to do. They'd arrived at the store. Well, you'll think of something. I've never known you to be indecisive or sit idle. I think I'll be knitting and sewing all winter. I need to replace the quilt on our bed. It's falling apart. When you're ready to quilt it, we'll have to have a little party and quilt it together. Josie nodded. That sounds wonderful. I guess I'm feeling a bit lonely. You're welcome to come and knit at my place in the mornings. My cabin is always warm from the stoves, and it smells wonderful. Josie grinned. I may just take you up on that. I hope you do. Myrtle opened the door to the store and the two women went inside. There were many men in the store, and Myrtle went straight to the front to talk to Katie. I made you a special dessert. I want your honest opinion. She pressed a small pan of cobbler into Katie's hands. It's a gift for all the help you've given me since I arrived. I will never turn down free dessert. Katie patted her middle. As you can see by looking at me. You're perfect just like you are, Myrtle said. Together, she and Josie unloaded the wagon, and Katie quickly began putting the baked goods on the shelves. When Katie and Myrtle were finished with their business, Josie pressed the bag in her hands toward the middle of the counter. I've been doing some knitting. Katie opened the bag and pulled out a multicolored hat. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm keeping this one for myself. Oh, I thought it would be good for a man, Josie said. And a woman, Katie replied. I'm keeping it. She kept pulling things out of the bag and exclaiming over how beautiful they were. These will sell out quickly. Please keep them coming. Josie nodded. I'll do my best. As the two women left the store, the men swarmed the items they'd brought and a line formed. Josie looked at Myrtle. Is it always this way? I've never seen the store so busy. Myrtle nodded. Yes, they wait for me to come. Many of them take their lunches when they know I'll be bringing my treats. Josie shook her head. I don't usually come to town. Agnes brought in the forage that the rest of us didn't need. Well, don't spend every day by yourself. I know you go to lunch every day, but you need to be around people more than that. I don't mind being alone for long periods, but it's always bothered you. You're right. I do need to do something about being alone. I may take you up on knitting at your place. Be careful, I may just force you to wash dishes. Any work the two of us do together doesn't feel like work. As they parted ways, Myrtle worried about Josie. Her friend really did need to spend more time with people. She was obviously sad, and that wasn't good. Once home, Myrtle started supper. She hadn't wanted to speak with Katie with Josie present, so she would go back to town once the preparations for supper were made, and then she would finish cooking as soon as she arrived home. When she set off for the store again, she hoped to catch Katie right at close. She didn't want to keep the older woman at work longer than necessary, but she wanted to have the discussion in private. It felt strange to discuss a business matter such as this with people around. She arrived at the store 5 minutes before close, and she could see everything Josie had brought and all her baked goods had already been sold. And that was with her baking double what she normally did. The store was empty except for Katie, so Myrtle approached her. I have something I'd like to talk to you about. Yes, of course, Katie said. The spot where the men meet me on my way here, there are 4 stumps on the side of the path. I was told you owned that property. Is that true? Katie nodded. Yes, my husband and I own it. I think that's where I want to build my bakery. Would you consider allowing me to lease the property and build there? I don't see why not. We're not using it. We could work out an arrangement where I get 10% of your revenue. Or you could pay a flat fee every month. I'll think about it, but I'm leaning toward 10%. It'll be easier than coming up with a set amount. I'll discuss it with Aaron and see what he thinks. And I'll talk to Mr. Johnson and get his opinion. Though, he mostly leaves business matters to me these days. He's busy preparing his sermons and working on our books. Katie shrugged. I'm sure it won't be a problem. Then I'll talk to Aaron and let you know what we decide. Myrtle smiled. I'm going to go finish supper. Thank you for seeing me. And thank you for the dessert. I'm sure Mr. Johnson and I will love it. I'll need your opinion tomorrow, Myrtle said as she headed for the door. You'll have it. Myrtle wanted to scream to the world that everything was going her way. She had a location for her bakery. She couldn't wait to talk to Aaron. He walked in just as she put the venison pot pie she'd made for supper into the oven. She hadn't even removed her coat and gloves yet. Aaron frowned. You're getting home late. I went back into town to talk to Katie about something. Oh, I can't wait to tell you all about it. There's something I want to talk to you about as well. Oh? She shrugged out of her coat and hung it neatly on a hook on the wall. Why are you flirting with another man? He asked. I would never. Roderick Stanton thinks you're in love with him. Something about giving him an extra cookie today? He said you're always particularly nice and single him out of the crowd. That's not true at all. I did give him an extra cookie, but only because he's my best customer, and he's made it clear that the sugar cookies I make are his favorite. That's all. Aaron shook his head. You're dealing with men who aren't used to having women around at all. A simple gesture like that is taken as flirting. He's told all the men at work that he's going to marry you as soon as he can convince you to leave me. I would never. She hurried to him and took his hands in hers. Surely you can see he mistook my generosity as flirting. The only man I want to flirt with is you. The only man I want to kiss is you. You're my husband. It doesn't look good when you give another man preferential treatment. I'd like you to stop doing that. I never meant, she sighed. I'm sorry, and it won't happen again. Good. Aaron hung his own coat beside hers. Now what did you want to talk to me about? Myrtle frowned, realizing that his jealousy and scolding had made her lose her excitement. I asked around about who owns the land where the men meet me when I'm heading to the store. It's owned by the Johnsons. Katie has said that I could lease the property for my bakery. I thought you weren't going to pursue the bakery until you found a partner to take some of the load off you. I will, I just thought it would be nice to start making plans. I specifically told you not to go forward without a partner. So in one day you flirt with another man, and then you defy me? I didn't think of it as defying you. I thought it would be smart to know what I was dealing with when I was ready. You talked to someone else about it without even consulting me. I'd have told you to wait, which is what I thought I told you last night. I know you were on your own when you worked at the hotel, and you were able to make your own decisions, but we're married now. You must talk to me before you go to someone else and start making plans that affect both of us. Myrtle felt that he was being unfair. She hadn't signed any kind of lease or anything, she'd simply inquired about the availability of the property she wanted to use. The man was being stubborn and unreasonable. I'm sorry, she whispered before walking outside with no coat. She needed a moment to herself. Chapter 10. When Myrtle went back inside, she set supper on the table along with his 2 desserts. They ate in silence, each of them refusing to back down. Myrtle was certain Aaron was being ridiculous, and he was equally as certain she didn't respect him or his opinions. She cleared the dishes and washed them, and then immediately changed into her nightgown. He was still sitting at the table when she closed her eyes to go to sleep. Or at least pretend to go to sleep. She had no desire to make love with him with how he was acting. She felt the bed give on his side after a long while, but she kept her eyes tightly closed. She didn't even want to accidentally touch him in his sleep. Perhaps she'd been on her own for too long, but she had a mind in her head, and a drive to do more, and she wasn't going to kowtow to him about the business she was building. Why would she? Upon waking the following morning, Myrtle immediately got to work on her baking for the day. The meat pies had gone well, so she decided to make more of them, putting one in his lunch pail. She was still angry, but she was able to see his side of things now that she was further from their fight. Perhaps she had been a bit premature in speaking with Katie. What are you making for desserts today? Aaron asked after dressing and moving to the table for breakfast. I made meat pies again. And I'm making cupcakes and the cobbler with the cookie base. It went over well with all my friends. I loved it too. I don't think I ever told you that, he said, looking down at his food. He was still a bit annoyed with her, but he could understand her excitement and enthusiasm. I'm glad. There's a piece in your lunch pail, along with a meat pie. Thank you. I appreciate you making it for me. Of course. It's a wife's job to see that her husband is fed. I guess it is, he said. Is it also her job to listen to her husband's counsel? It is. And I will endeavor to do better at that. Myrtle chose her words carefully, because they were the only apology he was going to get. Be careful about showing favoritism to the different men, he said softly. I don't want to hear about you being in love with yet another man. Trust me, I won't make that mistake again. Inwardly, she was upset that he'd brought it up, but she had shown poor judgment. There was a knock at the door as she stood to wash the breakfast dishes. It was Josie, carrying a bag with knitting needles sticking out of it. Oh, I'm so glad you came, Myrtle said. It'll be nice to have company while I work. Realizing she hadn't said a word about Josie coming over, she explained, Aaron, Josie will be joining me in the mornings. That way I will have someone to chat with while I bake. And I get to have someone to talk to while I knit, Josie added. I hope you ladies enjoy your morning then. Aaron stood and shrugged on his coat, scarf, gloves, and hat. He took his lunch pail and left, for the first time not kissing Myrtle goodbye. After he was gone, Josie asked, What's wrong with him? Myrtle opened her mouth to tell her friend what had happened, but then closed it again. She didn't need to be gossiping about her own husband. Instead, she shook her head. Would you like a muffin while you work? I have a few left from breakfast this morning. Oh, and I'm making meat pies to sell today, so if you'd like one of those, I'd be happy to give you one. Josie looked thoughtful but seemed to take the subject change in stride. I would like a muffin if you don't mind. Not at all. I used some of the blueberries Belle-dried early this summer. I think they turned out well. I've wondered if muffins would be something I could sell. She didn't mention the bakery at all. She was going to have to be happy with doing all of her baking from her home for the time being. I'm sure they would. Josie gladly accepted the muffin and the cup of coffee Myrtle placed on the table in front of her. That muffin looks delicious. I made a dozen for breakfast. I ate 2, and Aaron had 8. I guess he thought they were good. I don't know how you keep up with baking so much and keeping your house so tidy. Do you ever just sit down and let the voices in your head talk to you for a minute or two? Oh, no. The voices in my head want me to do many things I shouldn't. This way, I keep them under control, Myrtle said, grinning at her friend. Probably for the best then. Josie watched and chattered as Myrtle baked more cobblers. Remember, one of those is for Jack and me. I won't forget, Myrtle said. I need one for each of the 8 couples, and then one for Katie and her husband, and I'll sell the rest. Do the men always bring their own pie pans and plates for you to fill? Myrtle nodded. I do have a few plates I keep on hand, but the men know it will cost them far less to wash their own plate and bring it back to me. It seems you have all the men in the whole valley trained. I wish I did. Especially Aaron. She wanted to train him to let her have her way about things. Of course, that wasn't happening. He had his own opinions, and he wasn't afraid to share them with her, whether she liked it or not. Josie helped Myrtle pack the wagon before they went to Maggie's house for lunch. They each removed cobblers to carry them into the house for the other ladies. They're all mixed berry, Myrtle said. And I have meat pies if anyone is interested in those. She always felt the need to offer what she made to the other women first. They had provided the ingredients after all. Myrtle didn't participate much in the conversation with the other women. She'd already spent the morning with Josie chatting, and she needed to do some serious thinking about the disagreement she'd had with Aaron. Was he right? Had she been premature in asking about a lease for the bakery? She sighed. She probably had been. Though she hadn't intentionally made anyone feel that she was interested in them romantically. Myrtle didn't even know the man's name, and he was telling people she was interested in him? After lunch, Josie again walked with her to the store in town. The man she'd given the extra cookie to the day before stood with his chest puffed out. She'd seen paintings of peacocks with their feathers fluffed up all around them as they tried to impress the peahens. That's exactly what he looked like to her at that moment. She was careful not to make eye contact with any of the men, but especially the man who loved her sugar cookies, as she offered her meat pies and cobblers. When she mentioned they were made with sugar cookie crusts, the one man puffed his chest out even further. Aaron suggested I make crumbles with my sugar cookies because he loves them so much. You should all thank him for the idea because I think they are one of my favorite treats. I think they'll be a favorite of all of you as well. Hopefully, that would let the man know she wasn't planning on leaving her husband for any reason. When they arrived at the store, Katie asked about the lease. I'm going to wait on that for a while. I need to have someone working with me. Aaron is afraid I'm going to wear myself out, Myrtle said. Katie nodded. I do think that's a real worry for your ladies. You all work so hard. I know you worked hard at the hotel as well, but it almost seems excessive. Myrtle shrugged. But now we work for ourselves. We're building our own futures and not lining a rich man's pockets. I can see how it would be tempting to spend every waking moment working toward your future. I did that when we first opened the store. If someone pounded on my door at midnight, I'd open the store for them to buy what they needed, because every cent helped. I don't do that anymore, so no knocking at my door in the middle of the night. Katie grinned as she said it. She knew her friends had better manners than that. As Myrtle watched, Katie tucked 2 meat pies and an entire cobbler aside. Mr. Johnson loved your cobbler so much. He even had all that was left for breakfast this morning. I'm so glad. Myrtle said, smiling. If you're open to special orders, we'd like 2 of those every Saturday. 1 for us and 1 to serve after our service. I can do that. Maybe I'll bring 1 for service as well to make sure everyone gets a piece. Katie laughed. It would be good advertising. And the group is getting big enough that it would be welcome. I think I'm going to start serving coffee as well. Sounds wonderful, Myrtle said. 2 cobblers every Saturday. Saturday would just be a cobbler day from now on. Why not? Josie stayed for a little while after they got back to the cabin. She wiped the dishes after Myrtle washed them. This brings back memories, Josie said. How many shifts did the 2 of us take washing dishes? Way too many, Myrtle said, laughing. I was starting to think my fingers would always be wrinkled. After the last dish was dry, Myrtle immediately started supper. More whitefish had been dropped off, and she knew it was a good way to apologize to Aaron, and she'd decided he deserved that apology. Josie watched for a minute before pulling on her coat. I should go. My Jack needs supper too. Myrtle nodded. You got your cobbler, right? Oh, thank you for reminding me. It's on the table. I didn't want to risk you selling it. Josie picked up the cobbler. I'll bring your pan back tomorrow. Myrtle's eyes narrowed. I honestly don't know whose pan that is. I just use whatever I can get my hands on. You need more dishes for your bakery business. I do. Someday. Josie hurried off toward her home, and Myrtle finished fixing supper, putting the cobbler into the oven to warm just a bit. She knew Aaron preferred his cobbler warm. When Aaron arrived home, he stripped off his coat and hung it on the hook by the door, slowly unwrapping his scarf and removing his hat. It's getting colder every day. I know. I'm not sure how I'm going to survive an Alaska winter. He chuckled. Just keep baking. With both ovens going, we don't even need the fireplace. He quickly washed his hands as she put their plates on the table. Whitefish, he exclaimed. Agnes brought more by today. She keeps at least 2 fish for us every day. I'd eat only whitefish all winter and not get sick of it. Myrtle shook her head. I think I would. Thankfully, we have bear, moose, rabbit, and venison to choose from. And salmon, of course. Lots and lots of dried salmon. We'll eat like royalty. Aaron shook his head. And to think. Up until a month ago, I was content eating hardtack and jerky for every meal. I don't know how you didn't go crazy. I had a hard enough time for the month we were traveling. It was terrible, she said as she set his plate on the table. I want to apologize for going against your wishes and talking to Katie yesterday. I was looking at it differently than you were, but still, I should have listened to you. Forgive me? He took her hand, pulling her into his lap and surprising her. With the way he usually attacked his food, she was shocked that he was delaying his meal, even for a moment. I do forgive you. And several men came to me today and told me you did nothing wrong by giving Rod an extra cookie. They said he blew it all out of proportion. I'm glad they told you how it really was, she said. I would never flirt with another man. You're the man I'm married to. The man I love. Why would I flirt with someone else? You love me? He asked, blinking a few times. Are you certain? She nodded. Of course I'm certain. I never say anything I don't mean. He pulled her head down until their lips met, and he kissed her long and hard. I love you too, Myrtle. Already, it's hard to believe that I was ever able to survive without you at my side. She looked into his eyes for a moment and saw the truth shining from them. Resting her head on his shoulder, she said, I'm glad it's not just me. His hand stroked her back for a moment. Would you mind moving to your chair so we can eat? He whispered. I mean, I love you and all, but I'm hungry. Myrtle laughed. Now he was acting like Aaron again. And that made everything right with her world. Epilogue. Months later, after the long, hard winter, Myrtle knew she'd found her home. Her plans were on track for her bakery. All of her friends were having babies, but she wasn't yet. She didn't consider that a bad thing though. No, she wanted her business up and running before children came along, and it looked like it would happen. She'd found a partner for the business, and ground was broken in spring. By summer, she had a bakery where she served soups and baked goods every day. Maybe she'd started her marriage wrong by bringing along friends her husband hadn't expected, but it had all worked out in the end. Aaron walked into the bakery at lunchtime. Got any soup for a hungry man? He asked at the counter. Myrtle heard his voice from her spot in the back. What happened to the lunch I sent with you? She asked as she came around the counter. There was a hungry man, and I knew I could get a free meal here and see the woman I love. What more could a man ask for in life? I have meat pies and rabbit stew today, Myrtle said. Both, he replied, not surprising Myrtle at all. I'm hungry. Myrtle rolled her eyes. There's no man on earth who eats as much as you and still claims to be hungry. I'm a growing boy. She just laughed and brought him his lunch. Life in Alaska was good, and she wouldn't change it for anything.